cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where your favorite animated characters come to life just to torment you. I'm your host, roller coaster of drugs operator, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I got too much homework. It's rough.
It really is, and today's episode is all about the special Cartoon All-Stars to the rescue.
This is my future?
It is if you don't get off those drugs.
Daffy Duck, what are you saying? This special aired on April 21st, 1990, and yes, it is a patron request from Phil Jacobi, who says, and I quote, actually he's quoting something else, Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr., chairman of the Senate committee, called the show, titled Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue, quote, the single most ambitious and important drug education program ever attempted anywhere. And we'll have more from Old Mumbly Joe later in this podcast.
Yeah, but great timing on this pick by premium patron Phil Jacobi. Thank you for choosing this one because it's an amazing anniversary that also just happens to line up with old 420, baby.
For you people on the free feed.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah.
People on the Patreon can afford marijuana whenever they want.
You can enjoy a whole extra week of 420 with us here. It's, oh boy, what good times. This takes us all back to 1990.
Yes, so this was, we'll get into the history of this, but this aired on several networks at the same time on the Saturday morning, April 21st, 1990. Of course, this is like the Kingdom Hearts of harmful propaganda of the, war on drugs. We'll talk all about that. We'll try to stay light. I'm going to stop us when we get too preachy. I'll just blow the whistle on that because this is going to be a fun look at a very terrible, terrible cartoon.
It's something I've grown up with, this cartoon. I mean, I was 7, you were 8 when this aired.
No, I was still 7.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Right, you're a May birthday boy.
I'm a May boy.
So yeah, as both 7-year-olds, like we were the Corey-aged audience of this special, and I watched it intently, like because I did fall for the propaganda of we were just out of the Just Say No generation, me and you. So this kind of very special episode I was watching, and I did feel the magic of it being able to, I swear I changed the channel of it's on this one and this one and this one. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
That wouldn't happen again until 9/11.
Oh, yes, you're right. This is both tragedies that killed a lot of people, but this one I was very excited to watch it. And yeah, I mean, I knew it was a lame PSA on a certain level, but I was starstruck by every cartoon all-star in it. So much so that I also at least once rented the tape. It was a free rental, at least at my Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah.
And talked my mom into renting it just because I was like, the propaganda didn't bug me and I wanted to see all the cartoon characters back together. And then over time, it of course became a funny thing to watch with friends and teens and just goof on.
While high,
yes. Yeah. And then as the older I got, I just came to just hate it more and more.
Yes, I think I must have missed this airing because I remember seeing it in the video store and being like, oh, it's a free rental. I can talk my parents into getting a free rental, right? And it's like all these characters together. What are they going to talk about? It's a bummer.
Yeah.
We're going to have fun, talking about it. But man, this cartoon is just like I said in the intro, all these characters come together to yell at a child.
Yeah, for 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's like Scared Straight, but with Bugs Bunny.
And I mean, that VHS box, the biggest lie of all, like it's just all the characters hanging out together. Like it's there's no reference of drugs. The Smoke Man isn't there. Like it's just
Smurfette's on the cover. She's not in the special.
Hey, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, somebody didn't tell the poster artist to cut her out of there.
But I have a very close connection with this. So, like a lot of people, there was a huge recession. Actually, it was a depression in the late aughts. So after I got out of grad school, I was unemployed for a year. An entire year. Actually, I think a little longer than a year. It was amazing. A fun time. Played a lot of video games. No, it was miserable. But out of that, my roommate who I lived with, who I met in college, we started a comedy group called Garbage Duck. We had a blog and we made riff videos, like riff tracks.
Oh, that's fun.
Yes.
That's fun.
The blog is still online and the videos are still online on YouTube. The quality's not great because we were using like Rock Band mics and stuff.
Well, it was a different time.
Yes. I think everyone started recording stuff with Rock Band mics who's like doing podcasts now, but I still stand by those shorts and the articles and stuff. Check them out. Again, they could be better quality, but we were poor and working with what we had. But before I left my hometown, before we left our hometown, we wanted to do a live show, present one of our riffs live, a scripted riff.
Awesome.
And this was the one that we did on March 20th, 2010, before both of us left Ohio.
Wow.
We did it at this bar called the Lemon Grove. We got about like 20 to 30 people in the room. Most of them were our friends, of course, but we did this live and 2 shorts. And because of that, I've seen this like 15 times because when you do a riff, like with Riff Tracks or Mystery Science Theater, you watch the same thing 20 times. You watch it over and over again. You pause a lot. You pitch jokes and you become very, very intimate with every second of the trash you're watching. So when I was watching this again, I'm like, all of these lines are etched into my brain. Just some of the weird readings. It brought me right back to 2010, making $0 and then hosting a comedy show with a $3 cover. And now I've done about like 40 or 50 live appearances.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see how much I've grown since then, but it all started for me there. My first like attempt at doing a live show was then.
That's amazing. Well, and now it's basically 10 years since then now.
Yeah.
The progression of time, like that was for the 20th anniversary of it, or it was around the 20th anniversary of it, and now we're at the 30th. It's wild.
And I will plug my friend Bill, who was with me in that group, a group of 2. It was a duo. He is a Sleepaway Champ on Twitter. He's a very funny writer.
I should follow that guy.
Yes, he's really cool too. And hopefully he's listening to this because we had a lot of fun. And we did 2 shorts and we did this, but because of that, I know this too well. That goddamn song's been in my head forever. And it was just a fun time. Making the most out of being poor was what that came out of.
You have memorized Russi Taylor's like... R.I.P. I feel bad for her.
I mean, the Miss Piggy voice, I don't know how I dealt with that as a kid. The Muppet Babies.
Yeah. Hearing all the Muppet Babies in this, we haven't done a Muppet Babies What a Cartoon, but I feel like it will just be me going like, why did I watch this like 2 hours a day as a kid?
Miss Piggy is always screaming, and it's nuts.
Yeah, and it's like these, pretty good to great voice actors, but they're told to do an impersonation of somebody who created the role, but do it as a high-pitched kid, and it's like, ugh, this sucks.
I'm glad we got away from that.
Yeah.
Let's go over what little of the history we know about this. So there's very, very, very little documentation about this. There's only one real interview with one of the writers of this. That's a podcast interview. We'll talk more about that later, but
Interesting.
There's no oral history of, there's no behind the scenes of. I'm sure like at Comic-Con panels with like Jim Cummings or whatever, it was brought up once, but I don't know where that's collected. It was just very, very difficult. All of the press about this came out right before the show aired.
Okay. I'm hopeful time will make fools of us all. That like we're recording this 3 weeks ahead of the anniversary, so maybe when the anniversary happens, the AV Club or somebody else will do an oral history of it.
I was thinking, I could pitch this to a website and make $300, or I could just make a podcast and have fun. So I'm doing it this way. One guy who has a podcast, Jeff Rubin of the Jeff Rubin Show, he did a podcast interview with one of the writers. I listened to that. That was like one of my main sources for this. And even then, the writer seemed like a very nice guy, but just kind of vague, nothing dirty, nothing juicy. But he did lay down some stuff that I didn't reveal in my own research. So that I have that going for me. And yes, if you've been on the internet for a while, I'm sure you probably have seen the Nostalgia Critic episode about this. I think people younger than us probably were way more into him. And
Sure.
I watched him. I never liked his character, but I was like, it's kind of fun to learn about these things. But when like he cuts away to himself, putting a gun in his mouth or whatever, I'm like, this is so lame.
Yeah. I didn't think it was that funny then. Like, not to just dump on the nostalgia.
Oh, and then learning he sucks and mistreats employees and doesn't pay them. That's like, oh, I'm justified in disliking him.
Oh, yeah,
now.
actually, you're right. Yeah, I don't. I take that back. It's right to think he sucks.
Yeah. And everyone left his channel, like Lindsay Ellis and
everybody
Todd
quit it because he was stealing from everybody.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, fuck him.
It's safe to dislike him now.
But that really just brought me down. You saying how like, oh yeah, most whole generation learned about this probably because of his like millions of views on his video. About it.
I mean, the early aughts were like people like him and Angry Video Game Nerd and stuff. I mean, the Angry Video Game Nerd is fine.
Yeah.
Like he's playing a character, but that like people 10 years younger than us, I think they were really getting into those videos when we were just like, who cares?
Yeah, Angry Video Game Nerd went through his Dark Night of the Soul during the Ghostbusters 2016 thing.
That's true. Even I made fun of that on Something Awful.
But he's still, I would watch a million of his videos over Nostalgia Critic right now, that's for sure.
So this aired on April 21st, 1990, a Saturday morning. Again, as I said earlier, simulcast across all big three networks, but also Fox and Nickelodeon and MTV. It was a concerted effort to, I assume this was a big tax write-off for a lot of people, giving up valuable airspace.
I got to think the government, I mean, well, also you see the number of sponsors in this thing and the credits roll. It's like, this seems like a big like slush fund of stuff going on there for sure.
There's some shady dealings happening. So I believe the video was released in June because that's when the one review I could find of it came out from Entertainment Weekly. Gave it a C.
That's quite generous.
Yeah.
When you mentioned Nickelodeon, that's right. I'm glad you said that because I was sure I remembered it also airing on a cable channel too, not just the big three. Like it felt special that I could switch the channel and it was all showing the same thing.
And the writer was talking about how many ratings it got because it was on everything, and I think it attracted more than 30 million viewers. So it had like the same viewers as the last episode of Seinfeld, basically. That's how many people saw this goddamn special.
That's why it's even more tragic that like it works. Like it worked in the way that they got as many eyeballs as possible on this for kids. Like they got what they wanted of getting this message out to kids, and this is what they did with it.
And this all came from Roy Disney, like his office, saying like
he is the exec producer on it. So
he
that
is,
makes sense, yeah.
and he was like, I want to make a super relevant anti-drug special that will actually talk to kids in their language, and I'm a Disney, and I have the power to ask all of these creators to lend characters for this one project. So it was Roy Disney's idea, but funded by the good people at McDonald's, makers of non-addictive substances like fast food that are chemically altered to make you addicted to them. I'm getting preachy now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, yes, on the VHS, it starts and ends with a thing for the Ronald McDonald House, which I'm sure it's a charity that helps a lot of kids. I haven't heard anything like bad about it.
I looked it up and no scandals I could find. I was sure there would be something.
But I still feel scandalized in that it's like, you don't do a charity to create ads. Like they could have that charity without ever doing an ad for it. And by doing ads for it, it allows them to still kind of do an advertisement for McDonald's, but one you can't be mad at because you're like, what, do you not want him to help kids?
Yeah. It's like the first thing you see is like good PR for McDonald's, and also it puts the idea of McDonald's in your brain where you're like, I could go for some French fries right now. I was actually thinking about that when this started.
See, it'd be too crass if it was like a commercial for a Happy Meal that started it, but it honestly feels like extra wrong to me, viewed from the angle of like, they are using these, special needs children as kind of a shield from criticism. They're like, hey, it's we're just talking about our charity.
It's kind of exploitative because they're having not to get too like dark into this, but they're using these, disabled children who are like on display and singing this song. And what I think is like darkly humorous is like the disabled kids start singing the song, and then like, okay, enough of these people. They can't sing. They cut to a choir. It's like, let them do the rest of the song.
This is their fucking thing. Like,
if you're going to trot them out to like get tears from us, at least let them do the whole song.
Yeah, it's this bit. It was burned in my brain as much as any other part of this because it was up front right at the beginning of the tape.
It's all part of like the corporate propaganda that this is totally every element of this is just corporate propaganda.
Well, because that's the only in the capitalist world we lived in. That's the only way they could do this kind of thing. Like the government can't just do it. It has to be run through a business. Yeah.
Everything must be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So not a lot is known because it all happened behind the Iron Wall of Disney, but Roy Disney made shit happen. One thing I found out, according to a Vice write-up on this, is that Jim Davis himself wasn't contacted, even though Garfield appears. I think they got permission through the Garfield and Friends show and not through Jim Davis. So I don't know why it was off his radar, but Jim Davis was not happy about this, and he decided he would not sue them if the special never re-aired.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So that's why it only aired once.
Wow.
According to one article I read.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Davis talks a lot, but I'd like to see him sue the government for this. But I did see, like, Phil Roman is one of the executive committee people in the credits, and Garfield and Friends was their big show, the first big show for them. So I would think maybe it was just Phil saying like, hey, I'll deal with Jim, but I give you permission for Garfield. Go to it.
It's good PR for Garfield. I mean, this is good PR for all of these characters.
I think it puts Garfield and Alf on the level of Bugs Bunny. And I will say, I think the best 30 seconds of this involve Alf and Garfield. It's the only good stuff in this.
They're the only like cynical characters.
I can't imagine this without Garfield. Like it's 10 times worse without Garfield. So thank you, Phil Roman, for getting around your good buddy Jim Davis.
And I don't have a lot of details because there aren't any, but according to that writer, the owners of the characters were very protective of them. They're like, okay, they can't do this, they can do this. And then they're also watching how much time they had in the special, like, oh, my character's not in this enough. You need to give him more scenes. Like, that's what they were concerned about there, but there were no specifics about, like, who got more time or who couldn't do what. He just said that because he had written it 28 years ago. So
I'll mention it when we get scene by scene, but I definitely had the feel of like, hey, that character came back for no reason. Or this character seems cordoned off from other characters.
People like Bugs and Daffy and Michelangelo, they just exist in their own space, basically, and maybe they'll like be in the background of a song, but they won't be singing with the characters.
Yeah, I think, this is also in a post-Roger Rabbit world, so maybe after that big crossover that the cartoon owners already had their own rules there, that after that they're like, we should have had more rules about these characters.
I can definitely see this, like, this would not be a thing if Roger Rabbit didn't happen.
Absolutely, yeah, because they saw how much kids especially loved seeing all those characters hanging out. Like, the idea of a crossover was just starting to be novel, I think, to a lot of executives in 1990. Like for dorkos who didn't have the internet to talk about it, but like in the comic book world, they always wanted to know what would happen if these two characters meet, but it was so rare you got to see it.
It turns out they just yelled at a child.
Yes, yeah.
It's very depressing. But this is part of the war on drugs, and boy, this is going to be a depressing part of this podcast, but we're going to make it fun. So if you don't know what this is, it's a incredibly racist and disastrous set of rules and laws put into effect by Nixon in 1971, and just a terrible effect on our country. I went to the Center for American Progress, looked up a study from 2018, and so far $1 trillion in costs for this program, all these programs, and every year we spend $3.3 billion to incarcerate people for drug offenses, and 1/5 of the prison population is in there for drug offenses, and an additional 1.15 million people are on probation or parole because of drug offenses, like non-violent offenders.
Yeah, who also, like, they lose their right to vote. It changes their entire, life, what jobs they can get. I mean, it's horrifying.
Yeah,
it's awful.
It's bad. And again, it's look at the stats. You can't say this was good for anybody. And the racism inherent in everything that this was about is just disgusting.
I've heard that argument, this brought up in arguments about, obviously America has too many guns and we need to legislate for that, I think. But a huge danger of it can be seen in the war on drugs, which is just if you ask for the racist white nationalist machine of the justice system to do something, they're going to do it in a racist way. So even if you could create all those laws that would get fewer guns on the streets, they would be applied in the most racist, most hateful way possible. So it gives you pause of wondering if you should even do that stuff. And same with these drug laws. I mean, like even when this aired, people were talking about how like, oh, why is crack worse than cocaine and how it's punished, you know?
Exactly. And I mean, if you see how the special is written and how we were brought into anti-drug programs as kids, you can see just how racist the messaging is, where it's like the greatest horror of the special is of a suburban white kid to fall into the world of drugs. And that's what happened in my schools. It was just like, you don't want this to happen to you, do you? That was the greatest fear. It was like a very irrational fear because it turns out all of us white people got addicted to painkillers given to us by doctors.
Yeah, and that made one company in particular very, very rich.
Yeah. And we were, I mean, not to get too dark because this could get dark, but we were talking through this, Henry and I was trying to figure out like what they were doing to me as a kid. And it's like, we stumbled upon the obvious fact. It's like they created a horrible system to punish drug offenders. And they were like basically telling all of us little white kids like, hey, we built this terrible system. You probably won't get caught up in it, but just in case a judge isn't lenient, if a judge isn't lenient, you're fucked.
Yeah,
you're going to go to jail and terrible things will happen to you in jail. So just don't do this stuff because you don't want to be part of that system.
Yeah, this isn't made for you, wink, wink. It's made for other people. And that's why it's treated as a tragedy in this, because like, oh, the thing that's supposed to happen to lesser people happens to a nice white bread little suburban boy like Michael in this.
And it's just like those Scared Straight programs, which are like super racist. And I don't know if they happen anymore, but it's like, let's get all the, young white suburban kids, or maybe like first time offenders, like shoplifters, and all the criminals say, you know what happens in prison? And they talk about, sexual assault and violence. And when I see that stuff, I'm like, well, why can't they make prison better? Not like this should happen to you if you go.
There's no question of that, like prison shouldn't be hell in those things, which like, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't just be a factory for abuse and also slavery to use for cheap labor. Maybe it shouldn't be that. And I mean, that's a prison industrial complex on a good day, and it's getting worse every day.
Yeah. It's like my parents, I mean, they knew the rules. They were like, do whatever you want, just don't get caught with this stuff. Because they knew it, like you could end up in that system. And like, I am incredibly privileged. I, was smoking pot when it was illegal. I was doing illegal things, but no cop ever patted me down. I don't have a criminal record for anything like that. And now, because I live in California, I ordered weed once through delivery system, and they text me every 3 weeks, like, we got coupons.
Yeah, back off, buddy. Yeah, Stony app, calm it down. That's who bugs me. But in Florida, where I grew up, like my friends, it was legal enough for us if they wanted to do it. But our biggest stoner friend, he was also Mexican American. And would you believe that he was the only one who got arrested for possession among us? It's hard to believe. But yeah, it's the rules are applied differently. John Mulaney had this great joke where he was just saying like, oh, and pot's legal now. And then some white guy woos from the audience and he's like, calm down. We're white. It was always legal for us.
Yeah, like, exactly.
I forget the man's name, but a member of the Nixon administration, like he made it very clear. And like in an interview once, he's like, well, we can't make laws that directly punish hippies or black people. But if I over criminalize things that affect them more, then boom, you just get to say pot. You don't say the N word. You say these words. Like, and it's all coding.
Yeah. And again, not to get too dark or preachy, but that's the context this comes from.
Absolutely.
And we were part of all of that, like the Just Say No program. And there was the interview with the writer. Even he thought that was very patronizing because it's like a rich, out of touch old lady like Nancy Reagan saying, just say no. I don't understand. You could just say no to the drugs, but
let them eat cake.
Exactly. What this thing never explores, and what these programs and these sentiments never explore, is like the question: why do people do drugs? The answer is always peer pressure, but it's just like, no, what if you're trying to escape abuse or pain, or you're just in a drug using family. There's never the question of why. It's just like, well, peer pressure or you're evil.
Or you live in a completely underfunded public school system that just throws you to the wolves, and you'd like to have any money at all.
It never looks at the reasons why, like often, most often economic reasons.
When everything is defined by money in America, like that, it's always comes back to that.
But it's always peer pressure with these things, and it blows my mind.
Well, that's the easiest way to talk about it. You know, like you just say, you don't put the pressure on parents, you don't put the pressure on anybody. It's just, it also forks all responsibility onto the child.
Exactly,
It tells you this whole special is about how fucking weak you are. And if you were as cool and strong as Bugs Bunny, you wouldn't jump off a bridge like your friends. Like, and also it should be noted, this was a bipartisan issue. Like, there were the majority of politicians, left and right, back in like 1990, they were all in the war on drugs, because if you weren't, then you'd look weak like Michael Dukakis, or like a crazy person like Dennis Kucinich or Bernie Sanders, or, to be honest, Ron Paul also was against the it's the broken clock of libertarianism. Like, drugs is drugs
and sex work.
Sex work is the minute hand.
Exactly.
Like,
two things they're right about. But again, not to get too dark or preachy, but it sucks that we had to be subjected to this propaganda, and it also sucks. It just like, now they decided drugs are profitable enough to be like, now they're big business. So those people can stay in prison, but hey, white guys, get your Ease app and get your deliveries on. Yeah, it's big money for us.
I mean, that's a major test for me, for a lot of politicians, of like, if you are now saying it's okay, then you need to at least say you expunge the records and free the people who are in jail for the thing that's now legal, like, which, not every pro-legalization person does. I actually kind of liked how Bloomberg stuck to his guns. He's like, no, I still say it's a gateway drug.
I was thinking about that. He's just like, there needs to be more studies or whatever.
Yeah, at least he's sticking with it instead of being like,
well, he is the soda snatcher.
That's true. Yeah. Instead of
nobody has fun.
There's some other people who talked about how they were a top cop who put people in jail for pot.
Oh, yeah.
And then in an interview, they're like, oh, yeah, I smoked weed. I actually think it should be legal. It's like, oh, now you do, huh? Now when you were locking up millions of people in California.
Obama was in the Choom gang, famously.
Yeah. But anyway, now I'm just now I'm getting all fired up here. But
well, it's going to be a fun podcast. But yes, what I love about this is that 48 hours before this aired, this was screened for the Senate Committee on the Judiciary in a meeting led by Joe Biden.
Wow.
And there's a whole transcript of that online because they have to write down everything everyone says in the Senate.
I love
and
that.
in government meetings.
I love that got to be saved, but that they all these senators having to watch this slop.
I love it. I love it so that they were tortured. You know who had to sit through this? Strom Thurmond was there. There are statements from Strom Thurmond there, and there's a lot from Joe Biden. Like, Joe Biden was like the head of this meeting. If you want to read a ton of great Joe Biden quotes from this time, they are here, and I will read you one of them.
All right.
That I tweeted. And anyways, this document's online. It's freely available to the public. You can read this fucking meeting. A bunch of adults had to watch the slop. So Joe Biden says, yes, today's drug war is about prisons and prosecutors. Yes, exactly, Joe. Treatment beds and training programs, intelligence efforts, and interdiction. But the long-term struggle, the ultimate message of our success, has to be about education, about educating our children. Simply put, in the long run, this cartoon may be the best thing we have to beat the drug dealers. So our message today is this. Even if it sounds silly, cartoons may be able to beat the cartels with our young. If our schools and our families are built upon the message that is being broadcast on Saturday morning, we may be able to make more progress than we ever have. If teachers and the Ninja Turtles and the parents and the Pooh Bear all do their parts, we can prevent this generation of children from becoming the next generation of drug addicts. This joint effort, is what we are about to learn about today. So thank you, Joe.
Wow, yeah. Here's the deal. You need to listen to Bugs Bunny.
I like how he leads with today's drug war is about prisons and prosecutors,
yeah.
but also about helping people.
Well, I mean, that is a huge part of Biden's life that he would really prefer you not talk about, that he was a very tough on crime Democrat, which so was Bill Clinton. Clinton big time. Like, they worked very hard on these kind of bills. Now they'd say it was very normal and it wasn't a big deal. And actually, you know, I was
a style at the time.
I was doing this to prevent a worse thing from happening. So in a way, I'm a hero. Like, they say all this goddamn bullshit, but to start with talking about the prisons, like, yeah, that is the first prescription. You get the bad guys off the street. That's how you say it. Like, that's it's just
and it was shown that incarcerating drug offenders did not lead to a decrease in violence. That was not the cause of decreasing violent crimes.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes the situation worse in that way. Like that, it's horrible. And again, like this is stuff like you're not supposed to remember about Joe Biden's life at this current time, because we'd rather he be president than the other guy.
We are like 3 weeks before this goes on the Patreon, or 2 weeks before it goes on the Patreon. So who knows what will happen before then?
That's true.
He could have turned himself around completely. Speaks very clearly. You know, things can happen.
I'm glad he's on the side of the Ninja Turtles at least.
Exactly. Yes. He should actually talk more about that.
Meanwhile, Strom Thurmond is watching that, just like slowly dying in his chair. Like, God, that awful.
Joe Biden's writing his obituary while
my
this
best
is running.
Friend, like I wanted to even show this to my best friend in the world, Strom Thurmond. Now, we did disagree on some things.
Let's just say we're feeling conflicted about Joe Biden on this podcast.
Yes, yeah.
Let's talk about this interview with one of the writers, Dwayne Poole. We'll talk more about him in a second, but some stuff came out that I already mentioned earlier. Here's some stuff I didn't have time to mention. So his first draft was more hard-hitting. It was a little darker. But, you know, the studios had a problem with that, with how their characters were being used. So I think the problem with this special, I mean, it's bad, but also the drug use and abuse and the questions like why, they are not explored in full enough detail, because I feel like we can't talk too much about drugs in this special. Yeah,
it's weird that all the studios agreed to have their characters in this, but then when the rubber meets the road and they're like, well, let's talk about crack. They're like, well, let's pull that back a little bit. This needs more humor. I'm actually kind of glad to think I'd hate to see a harder hitting version of this, honestly.
I know. And like, we're at the point in history in 1990 where Bugs Bunny at least has to say, yeah, drugs make you feel good.
Yeah.
So we're at least that far. But like, they still have to say marijuana is dangerous. But I think we have escaped that now, because like, I think all the kids that were our age that grew up with this and then smoked pot and realized like, well, I'm not addicted.
Yeah.
I'm not hungover. This only lasts for a few hours. It's fun. It makes cartoons funnier. I'm hanging out with my friends. They're like, oh, everything that was told is a lie.
Yeah, it does. It also doesn't make me want to smoke crack either, or move on to harsher drugs, which again, it's complete bullshit that was even sold to us. Like, our parents in 1990, they were stoners. They had the generation with weed too, and they grew up to be your boring parents, not drug addicts.
They wanted all the fun to be over when they could no longer have it.
Exactly, yes.
Take it all away. And this is a very boy-focused show. Like, all the characters are male of any note, except for Corey. Even the cartoon characters are all male.
Miss Piggy, the only girl in there I can think of. Yeah.
But yeah, he said that he doesn't agree with it now that he's, far enough away, but it's very boy focused because that's how things were written back then, because girls would watch boy shows, but boys would not watch girl shows. So if you made a boy show, you would get the largest audience.
I see. I mean, Corey and Michael both represent the demographics they're talking to, and as Corey is presented in this, she's just a tag along to Michael. And so if the Michaels at home wanted to watch this, they probably just assume they've got Corey anyway.
So available on VHS once and never on DVD or Blu-ray, for obvious reasons. I mean, I'm sure the Jim Davis thing was a problem, but also all the licensing, and there's like no super clean version of this.
There's a pretty good, if you search like Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue Best Quality, you'll find the best rip out there off of a quality tape. But even in that, there's still lines through it that come in every now and then.
That was not around 10 years ago. Like, the riff that we did and put online is like a really bad quality, but that was the best you can get in 2010 on YouTube.
Yeah, we're even more blessed now with the streaming of these things. I guess that's why it's also so readily available now, because nobody can claim it, like, of all the participants in it, who probably just thought, like, it'll air once in 1990 and I'll never have to think about this again. There's no internet that could host these things. Al Gore hadn't invented it yet.
That's the same thing that happened to the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah.
And now we've all seen it. So let's talk about who is behind this thing. So this was written by Dwayne Poole and Tom Swale, a writing writing duo. Let's talk about Dane first because he's still alive. So Dwayne started in the Sid and Marty Krofft, Hanna-Barbera, Ruby Spears hellscape of kids TV in the 70s.
I bet they were all sober, straight living men.
Yes, not a drug smoke, not a drink drunk. So he worked on things like Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. That show's too hot, by the way. The all new Super Friends Hour and the Scooby-Doo Dino-Mutt Hour.
I love Dino-Mutt and Scooby-Doo Hour.
Scooby-Doo had a lot of relatives, like Scooby-Dum was one of those guys.
Yeah, well, Dino-Mutt was more in a side show. Like, not that Blue Falcon and Dino-Mutt didn't cross over in a Scooby-Doo mystery, but they usually had their own adventures.
So he seemed to meet up with Tom Swail on the Godzilla cartoon where Dwayne Poole was the creator or credited as a creator of the Godzilla cartoon, the 1979 one.
Yes, the Godzuki show.
Yes. Is that the one that goes, and Godzuki? Yes.
Yep, the worst.
Awful. So together, he and Tom Swail wrote for bad cartoons like The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, The Smurfs, Laverne and Shirley in the Army, and Alvin and Chipmunks, the 1980s series.
Okay. Now that's the one I watched the most of the stuff they worked on. But if you were a Saturday Morning Lifer, all the things you worked on were bad. There wasn't a good show you worked on, pretty much. Or the bar was so low that good was a show like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Like, that was better than seeing the Fonz travel through time or whatever he did in that show.
Alvin got a movie.
Yeah.
The Fonz did not. But yes, so these two kind of graduated, quote unquote, to live action, and they wrote for stuff like Heart to Heart. They wrote the Love Boat TV movies, and for the series Hotels, I've never heard of it. But after this, they didn't work on too much together. They're credited with 2 TV movies, the most recent of which is 1995's The Man in the Attic.
Okay, one of the many TV movies that are about making you very scared and worried. It's, that fits with Cartoon All-Stars. It's Suburban Fears. Like, that's
just like a Portrait of an Ass Grabber.
I guess they moved up to live action. It's seen as a move up because it was probably union versus non-union in that case.
I'm sure that was a huge part of it. So yes, he and his writing partner were chosen to write for this because they had, graduated to live action, but they had also done cartoons, so they were held in higher esteem than just cartoon writers. Yuck.
Right. Yeah.
I spit upon them. After this, Dwayne wrote like 50 TV movies.
Jesus.
And he's still writing them. He's written like 12 of those Hallmark Christmas movies.
Oh God. They just make those all year round. They're all no offense to him as a writer, but that seems like a very easy job. Like, you just change out a couple gears in the machine and you make the same car every week.
Hey, he's getting paid for it.
Yeah, hey, somebody, we all turn to those Hallmark movies at Christmas to not talk to family members. They fulfill an important role in America.
But he seems like a very nice man.
Yeah.
The podcast interview with him was very nice on the Jeff Rubin show. I would check it out. Not a lot of good information, but you can hear about, writing in the world of cartoons in the 70s and 80s, where he came from, and his fuzzy remembrances about working on this show.
That's cool. There's not many people left alive who worked on this thing, though, who would know the stories.
There's a lot of dead people on this thing. So like Tom Swail is dead. He started in the Sid and Marty Krofft world as well, working on the original Land of the Lost series. Okay. And before he met up with Dwayne on the Godzilla show, he was a producer on the Brady Bunch Variety Hour.
Oh man, the greatest!
Oh, it's so good.
The greatest worst show ever.
Just like the Simpsons Smile Time Variety Show. Space Academy and Spider-Woman. And not a huge career. After splitting with Dwayne as a writing partner, he wrote 2 more TV movies and then passed away in May of 2018 at age 71. So he recently left us, the other writer of this.
I didn't realize it was that recent. Oh.
And also, probably the most talented people on this goddamn thing. Wonderful Ways to Say No, the song written by Howard Ashman and Alan Menken.
Yes,
Howard Ashman had a year left to live. The writer of Somewhere That's Green is writing this garbage.
Yeah, it's a shock to me every time I see it. I mean, what really made me mad looking at it was to just think of how, like, in a way, he is doing this for the government, especially when it's like hosted by the president.
Oh, I didn't even think of that angle. Yeah,
he's doing this for a government that let him and millions die from AIDS with no care, and here he is helping them with propaganda like that. That makes me furious all over again.
That sucks even more. And it's like thinking of Howard Ashman and Alan Menken. They are 2 dudes living it up in like off Broadway world of New York in the early '80s. They're not doing drugs.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, to think of a singing puppet plant, you got to be smoking a little bit of a ganja.
Audrey 2 is the ultimate wacky tobacco. But yeah, go back to our Aladdin podcast, which is now free, by the way, on the Patreon.
Yes.
And we do a lot of information on these two. But again, Ashman died in 91. Aladdin was his baby. He never got to see it happen. And, you know, writer of music from Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, half the songs in Aladdin, of course, all of the music in Little Shop of Horrors.
By the time this aired, they were Oscar winners for the Little Mermaid. Like,
that's true. They got them right before they won their Oscars.
Good Lord. What a weird weekend for those guys. I'd love to ask at least Alan Menken about this.
Oh, God.
About the wonderful ways to say no.
Like, what was he thinking? Was it just a demo for some other thing they were working on?
It feels pretty tossed off.
Yeah.
I will say that.
But still very catchy, even though it's just super insipid. So, animation by Wang. We talked a lot about Wang and a lot of things we do because they're like second best house most people use.
Of the Korean studios at that price range, they're one of the better ones back in 1990. And obviously, this is not a good thing. But I do think the animators, and that goes to the overseas side too, they had a difficult task of keeping characters on model from across like 30 different properties. And they mostly handle it, I think.
This is the best something like this could look. But I'm surprised they didn't try to get TMS on this thing to make it look really good, because a lot of these characters had been animated by TMS, Tokyo Movie Shinsha, which we gush about on every podcast. But, it feels like for something this special, they should have spent more money on it.
Yeah, and if you're Roy Disney working with the McDonald's Corporation, you're trying to keep costs down. Like, I bet if those voice actors weren't even paid for this, and they're like, well, no, this is for charity or whatever. That's
for
bullshit.
The kids.
Yeah, it's for the kids. You should get paid. Rusty Taylor should have got a paycheck from this thing. I tells you.
I think so. And so let's talk about people who worked on this. They're just all animation lifers. We talked about this on Bucky O'Hare. Like, their biographies are not interesting because they are just part of the machine that made this stuff. So they worked on everything. So storyboards by Adrian Gonzalez, like, his credits are a mile long. I can talk about a few of them. I just kind of skipped over most of them because he worked on everything. Mm-hmm. So he started on 1986's My Little Pony the movie, and then did storyboards for stuff like G.I. Joe, Dino Saucers, The Real Ghostbusters, Captain N the Game Master, Denver the Last Dinosaur, Bucky O'Hare, James Bond Jr., Pirates of Darkwater, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the last one he worked on was Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century.
Oh, we just talked all about that on the Street Sharks episode. But not all about it. But
he just did storyboards his whole life for everyone and everything.
Yeah, no, well, we know that, like, it's not a full-time job on an animated series. Once a project is done, you got to move to your next one. Like, so you just jump from job to job and do your storyboards for a couple weeks or a couple months, and then move on to another storyboard job.
It's the same with the supervising director of Karen Peterson. She was also supervising director on the episode of Bonkers that we did last year.
I thought I recognized that name. Okay.
And also supervising director of Bucky O'Hare, which we talked about her there too. So her third appearance on What a Cartoon. But in case you need a reminder, she started in animation in the mid-70s on things like Fat Albert and the Cosby Gang and Tarzan and Lord of the Jungle at Filmation. Sorry, that's Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. They're two separate shows. Okay. So lots of directing credits. So again, part of that world, like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Jem and Humanoids, Garfield and Friends, Muppet Babies, blah, blah, blah. You understand.
Yes, yeah.
She eventually got to go to Disney, though. So she broke out of the crap cartoon factory and went to Disney.
It's hard to tell what this has the feel of like, it feels kind of in between a Marvel production and a cheap Disney TV thing. Though I guess that's another reason to go with Wang as overseas, or if they had done TMS, because they did work on most of these shows. So you're asking me, at least on the overseas side, like, you guys did a DuckTales and then you did a Muppet Babies. So you know how to animate these characters.
I mean, Karen got to go on to work on Gargoyles too. So like, she got to work on some good stuff.
At least she was free to have some quality in her life.
So let's talk about the origins of all 20 characters for this special. No, we're not going to do that because we'll cover their own shows. We've covered some of the shows that these characters are from anyways, but let's talk about the voice actors. These are all people we've covered in the past. We don't really need to go into too much detail about them. So like Frank Welker, Jeff Bergman, in one of his first roles voicing Daffy and Bugs. Mel Blanc had died in 1989, so new people are taking over.
He wheezed his last. It's sad how long he had to. They should have replaced him when he could pass the torch in person.
I think so, but I prefer the Joe Alasky Daffy to his.
Very much so.
But he's doing Daffy and Bugs in this one, and a lot of people would play Daffy and Bugs.
I also prefer the Billy West Bugs to Bergman's Bugs.
I don't know. I don't like
Billy
Billy's.
comes through a little too much.
I think so. Yeah.
I could see it. Maybe Bergman has a more down the middle approach that doesn't remind you of him doing voices for other characters.
So also Jim Cummings, Don Messick, Lorenzo Music, Townsend Coleman is doing his one role as Michelangelo, Russi Taylor, and everyone in the voiceover mafia of the 80s.
Yeah, that had to be fun too for them to be like, oh, I get to play the three. Like for Russi Taylor, she's the nephews and Gonzo.
That's true. Yeah, doing one of her classic screechy voices. R.I.P.
And Welker. Oh, you haven't said Welker yet.
Oh, Frank Welker was the first guy I mentioned. Papa Smurf and Slimer. And am I missing anybody?
I believe he's Kermit also.
Oh, Kermit. Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry, he's Kermit. Yeah. I'm sorry. Don Messick is Papa Smurf. But also Alf voice and creator Paul Fusco. He's doing the voice of Alf, not credited. I'm guessing it's a contractual thing, like he was under contract with NBC or something, or there's something going on. Like I feel like he would want to be known. Like he loves Alf. He is always pitching Alf and trying to reboot Alf. I'm sure he would want his name on this.
I couldn't imagine that he'd want people to think Alf was played by anybody other than him. He is very not into. There's the funny story on the Simpsons X-Files crossover that Fusco called up Mike Reese and he's like, hey, you should ask me to be Alf for that little line. And they mention how crazy it is to get a call from Paul Fusco because it's just Alf talking to you.
I want a phone call from Alf. Can I get one of those celebrity videos from Alf?
He better be on Cameo.
Yeah.
Paul Fusco, if you're not on Cameo yet, get on it, buddy.
He needs to, with the puppet and everything.
Oh, yes.
So we talked about him. We talked about all these people. We talked about him on a Goofy movie podcast, but Michael on this show is played by Jason Marsden, and he was Max in a Goofy movie.
Yeah, and he's not unlike Scott Menville, who we talked about on another podcast we recorded today. He's one of those I'm one of the rare guys who can play a teen my whole life. You don't have to replace me when I age out of the voice. So he's been playing teens forever, that Jason Marsden, not James Marsden.
He's an eternal teen. And of course, legendary actor, was in Patton, was in Doctor Strangelove, so many other things. And also man getting hit with football in the groin. George C. Scott as Smoke, which apparently is the character's name. I don't think they ever call him that.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's just the personification of drugs. George C. Scott, big get for this. He's the biggest extra celeb in this thing.
And I found a clip of George C. Scott during the screening of this. It was pretty hard to find, but I dug it up.
Oh, boy.
Turn it off. Turn it off!
That's, of course, George C. Scott in hardcore.
Yes, yeah, you got me.
Yeah, sorry. I knew that line from Mystery Science Theater, and I reference it all the time, but I forget it's a scene of his father, a father watching his daughter perform in a pornographic movie.
Yes.
Turn it off! Turn it off!
But great, that's Oscar-winning acting there. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the first George C. Scott film I saw was Angus, though.
Oh, shit. I think I forgot he was in that. I saw it, too.
Yeah, it's one of his last roles, I think.
Was he like the kind grandpa?
He was the kind swearing grandpa who dies in the middle of the movie. Spoiler for Angus.
That was a good movie. I like good soundtrack too.
Yeah,
there's a Weezer B-side on that soundtrack.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I think we all listened to the live from Harvard coffee shop Rivers Cuomo performance of another song from that album.
Oh yes, that's true. It had different lyrics.
Daddy's dead,
right?
Yes, yeah.
And so one of the people who worked on this also was Milt Gray, who directed. He co-directed which episode of The Simpsons in season 1?
Crepes of Wrath.
And then he was a full director on Simpson Tide.
Yes, yeah, and he was an animation timer, I think, for most of the classic Simpsons, and is still regarded as one of the best timers in animation, like a pro's still at it all these years later.
But he's one of those guys that rolled into the Simpsons from Saturday morning cartoons and wasn't quite what they wanted out of a director. Mm-hmm. So he was I don't think he liked directing either.
Yeah, but Gray, I mean, this definitely feels like the kind of couple months of work you take on in the field back then. Like, it's a very workman-like production for him as well, I'm sure.
So that's it for this very brief history. We'll get back and talk about our play-by-play of Cartoon All-Stars to the rescue.
There's myriad wild and wonderful ways to say no.
Here's a practical reply.
Go ahead, let fly, spit right in his eye and say no!
Those drugs are so boring. I'm in training for football.
And they tell me that works fine. Cause the bottom line's to show them the sign and say no.
Hey, Joey. I got some stuff you just gotta try. What is it? Pot. You know, marijuana. Oh, well, I don't know. What, chicken?
Joey's in a jam. What should he do? Cake.
Get a pizza.
Excellent. Get a pizza.
Get real.
Get out of there.
You got it. Let's see if Joey's that smart.
I'm not chicken. You're a turkey.
He's right. Drug dealers are dorks. Don't even talk to them. Cowabunga!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the break for the What a Cartoon podcast episode all about Cartoon All-Stars to the rescue. I am one of your hosts, Bob Mackey, thinking about ALF and Garfield in a healthy relationship. Who is here with me today?
It's Henry Gilbert with a lamp stuck in my back.
Happens to the best of us. Anyhow, thanks so much for listening to this. If you want to get more of our podcasts and also get them 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And if you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get just that, and also access to over 100 bonus podcasts. That includes all of our limited miniseries, which includes Talking of the Hill, Talking Futurama, Talking Critic, and the just around the corner, coming super soon, Talking Mission Hill. We're going through the entire only season of Mission Hill in the Talking Simpsons / What a Cartoon treatment. There is so many things happening on the Patreon at the $5 level. We have interviews. For Talking Simpsons, we have end-of-season wrap-ups and deleted scene specials, and so many more things happening. We've been doing this for almost 3 years on the Patreon, so if you sign up immediately, you get access to all the content we've made exclusively for patrons for the past 3 years. That is a lot of things to listen to. But Henry can tell everybody out there what is happening at the $10 level. One extra long podcast once a month for $10 and up patrons.
That's right. If you like all those $5 things but want a little bit more, for $10 a month, you get that and the What a Cartoon movie. That's our premium podcast where me and Bob do the What a Cartoon treatment for a different animated feature film once a month. In April, you're going to be hearing Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, the Hayao Miyazaki classic that brought Lupin to the big screen in an amazing way. And if you sign up, you'll get that one and all of the previous ones we've done, over 60 hours of podcast awesomeness for films like SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, The Animatrix, Iron Giant, Toy Story, Akira, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Kiki's Delivery Service, a Goofy movie, Aladdin, and so many more. You'll want to hear all of those, and you only can in full if you sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you're new to Patreon, it is so easy to sign up, and once you do, you're given access to a code that you have access to at all times, and you just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts, so you can listen to our bonus podcast alongside all of your podcasts and your podcasting lifestyle. And there is also a Patreon app that works very well. Either way, it is so easy to listen to all of our bonus content at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. That's it for this break. We'll let you get into our full discussion of Cartoon All-Stars to the rescue.
Never try marijuana, don't try it at all. It's a lie, it's like beating your head on a wall. Say no way, marijuana's a fast way to fall.
So we're back after getting totally stoned.
I am stone cold sober.
I'm frankly too caffeinated for this podcast, which is a legal drug that should not be regulated.
The good kind of drugs, just like beer and sugar
and alcohol.
Yeah. When they started off with George W. Bush, the H.W. Bush thing, I think he knows a thing or two about selling drugs as a person who used to run the CIA.
Little thing they taught me in the CIA. Oh, yeah. Sell drugs to the right people.
Yeah. Well, and also, I looked up the timeline on this. George W. Bush, by his accounting, got sober when he was 40, which was 1986. So who is H.W. Bush to tell us about getting, helping your kids not be drunks or cokeheads?
There were no cartoons to help George W. Bush get better.
It's true, yeah.
And, of course, a big RIP to Millie the dog, who passed away in 97. And also, I feel bad living with that awful Bush family. Just a bunch of monsters.
The worst. The things she's seen. I also feel bad for Millie that, like, she's being held in place by Barbara. Like, Barbara has just a grip on her lower jaw. Yeah, it's just...
We did a riff about that.
Clearly, they wanted the dog to just stay in place for the shot. And they're like, the kids like the dog. We're your grandparents, so just watch this.
It makes you look more human.
Yes, yeah. Just seeing the Bushes here, too, it just makes us all feel like warmed over Nancy Reagan stuff. It's like Nancy at least had the drive would just say no. This just feels like them going like, we also say no.
Yeah,
like,
we're sitting down to record like 4 more promos after this. It's like 15 seconds of the Bush couple there.
I think that cartoons will help. And that's it. Like, yeah, boo. I hate these fucking people.
Yeah, they're awful. We now open our cartoon special with a shot of any town USA. It could be your town if you are white and middle class.
Yeah, it really roots the stakes of this that it starts in a lily white suburb, like this idyllic, really, the kind of like home ownership we could only dream of.
Oh my God, this home.
I'd sell all the drugs in the world to get this home.
Exactly. And our first shot is of Corey, this little girl, asleep in bed surrounded by merchandising.
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting in they go for this. Like, they could just have the cartoons just appear on their own or jump out of the TV, but like, it's kind of Toy Story before Toy Story.
I thought so too, but they don't commit to it. So like, they kind of do it in the beginning where it's like Kermit is a clock and Garfield is a lamp, but then it's like, well, Mom has a framed picture of Alf on her vanity, and Slimer is just a ghost that lives in their house, I guess.
Yeah, Slimer who can physically interact with things and eat it. I mean, the reality of this, why they even try, like the attempt to make it make physical, real sense that you're supposed to read Michael and Corey as real people that cartoons talk to, they shouldn't have even tried with that. Like, trying only makes when it falters more obvious.
You don't want to think about the reality of the situation at all.
Yeah. Well, the Smurfs famously were a million toys, but they have to come out of a comic book.
No one was reading the Smurfs comics in America. So her door opens, like a hand comes in, grabs a piggy bank. It's a big scandal. We zoom down on the floor, and the Smurfs comic book is there. Papa Smurf wakes up. He was Smurfing like a baby, because that's the joke with Smurfs. Yes. And then Papa Smurf's like, oh, Corey's piggy bank is gone. He rings the bell. All the Smurfs spring into action, jump out of the comic book, and then it's like, I don't know if we're still in Corey's room, but there's like a framed picture of Alf and also like a Garfield lamp.
I guess they must be in her room then, right?
Yeah, I don't know if like a little like 6-year-old would have a vanity.
No,
with like makeup and stuff on it.
Yeah,
it's like
that. It feels like the parents should be like, "Hey, she needs to grow up more first. Don't do a hand-me-down vanity."
It just feels like a different room because the direction is very bad on this. But
I guess the lineup in this also, it is like the last gasp of the 80s. Like, this is 1990, but it's all the most popular animated characters from the late 80s. Like, the Smurfs couldn't have been bigger.
Just as all of their stars were fading. So like with Alf's final episode basically just aired.
Yeah, that's right.
And his cartoon Alf Tales was like, it went off the air in 89.
Yeah, wow. So Alf's kind of over at this is the last gasp of him. Yeah.
The Alf party has ended.
Yeah, I also think it's kind of bullshit that the Smurfs get away with just having a scene from their show happen. Like, yeah. And they make you wait on Brainy Smurf too. I was mad at that. I was like, at least show me Brainy.
Papa Smurf. I hate his voice so much. Let's meet our cartoon friends.
You want to help track down the thief, Garfield?
Hey, going through life with a blue lampshade is work enough. Wake me when the lasagna comes.
Let me rephrase that. Do you want to help, or do you want to be lunch?
My luck to be stuck on a dresser with a pushy alien.
Simon, let's help catch the thief! An excellent opportunity to be of service. But where's Alvin? Alvin! Busy! There's someone who needs your help! What? Another autograph hound? Come on!
So, like, presumably they escaped off of a record cover.
Yeah, there's like LPs sitting on the floors, which also is like, why does she have LPs in her room? You're a child.
And then considering like the size of the characters, Alvin is watching a TV. The TV has to be like 2 inches tall.
Well, that's even okay. Yeah. So I could imagine the TV came out of the same picture that they came out of, and that's why it's to scale. But also, scale just gets thrown out the window in like 2 seconds.
Completely.
But Paul Fusco and Lorenzo Music have such great chemistry. It's horrible. This is the only time I think they ever worked together.
I want to see Garfield and Alf team up a lot now.
Yes, they're a perfect combo.
Yeah.
Especially that's just with the type of characters. Then you get a cat eating joke in there too.
That's right. Yeah. They're playing the hits.
This is the only good 30 seconds of the whole thing.
It really is. And it's funny how in this special about drug addiction, we have like 3 food addicted characters. There's Slimer, Garfield, and Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
They all have their own addictions that are never covered.
It's true. Especially a cat should not be eating lasagna.
It's very bad for them. Not even as a treat.
But
I'm bringing that meme back.
But I like Garfield even has a joke about being a lamp, and he has like basically a lampshade stuck up his butt.
These body horror jokes about their existence, they just fade away instantly when they just become the cartoon characters.
Yeah, and his line about like my luck to be stuck on a dresser with a pushy alien. Like God, it felt great to see my old pal Garfield again.
It's just great to hear Lorenzo Music again.
And I think this really tricked me in first viewing as a kid, because you do get the corny melodrama of stealing the piggy bank, but until at about like the third minute where they say marijuana, this is just characters hanging out, and there's jokes about it. You don't know it's a drug PSA, and it's kind of tricking you.
There's one line, and we'll get to it, that Alf says that kind of signals like, well, this will be no fun.
Yes.
So don't you worry about that.
Yeah, but all these, yes, then there's gags of them like trying to hide from Corey or scared she's going to see him. It's like, what's your punishment? What happens if she fucking does, man?
Like Slimer shows up soon and like reveals the truth to her. So it's just like, what's even happening? But yes, so we're back in Corey's bedroom. The Smurfs are kind of forming a tower to wake up Corey. Pooh is in bed with Corey. Pooh's her stuffed animal.
Now that's smart casting, that Pooh is the one who talks the most to the youngest character, because it would be the most trusted by a little kid. He's the most demographically young character.
And the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh was a fairly new show at the time.
Oh, and a big hit. Plus, it kind of cordons off him from a lot of the stronger talk about drugs, and that the silly old bear can just hang out with a little kid.
He doesn't leave the house.
Yes, yeah.
And a lot of characters...
Except for one line of the song. He actually is there for the song.
That's right. He like materializes, and like Garfield kind of disappears too after this early part.
Yeah. Boo.
I want more Garfield. We love Garfield here on this network. So they're trying to wake up Corey. Pooh decides like, oh, Kermit's a clock for some reason. Let's wake up Kermit, and then she'll wake up. Kermit's alarm clock features go away immediately.
Oh yeah, they just disappear. And at least he has one joke about like, boy, it sucks to be an alarm clock. And at least we get a joke of Brainy Smurf being thrown by the other Smurfs. Like, that's some classic Smurf comedy there. You get
it's about as funny as Smurf skits.
I always forget, because we've never done a Smurf episode.
Can we not do one?
The Smurfs are all pitched up. It's just horrible to listen to. The Chipmunks are, at least you expect it.
Papa Smurf, there's something happening. It's terrible.
You all need to push harder.
It really sucks. Thankfully, they go away. But Corey wakes up. That's when Slimer, a real ghost who lives in their house, flies through the wall, eats a lamp. There's so many like novelty lamps in this house.
Yes, you're right.
This house is full of like novelty items.
The mom just loves novelty lamps.
She went on a shopping spree at like Spencer's Gifts or something.
And consider, that Slimer is supposed to be the ghost of John Belushi. So
oh no,
he knows the cost of drugs better than anyone.
He's a floating anti-drug propaganda. So Slimer eats the cornucopia lamp. It shines through his mouth. He's got missing teeth, of course, so it shines through it onto where her piggy bank should be. Mm-hmm. And that's when she notices it's missing.
Some very dramatic lighting on her, going like, my piggy bank, no!
She should have a smart investment in a real bank. That's the real lesson of this special. But now we have more investigations.
I don't like the looks of this.
Neither do I. No food in sight.
Somebody's coming!
All right. There must be $20 in here, easy.
I can't believe it! Corey's own brother?
Wally never did this sort of thing to the beeve.
That's probably the funniest line in this.
Yeah, I like that.
It's like wry pulp culture grab. That's basically the best you're going to get in this whole special.
I wonder if Fusco just made that up on the day. That feels like a classically Alf line, because a reason we all loved Alf is because he watched TV as much as we did and constantly talked about it.
He was a big fat party animal.
Yeah. Speaking of that, that's another of my favorite drawings of Garfield shoving Alf's big ass under the bed.
I never liked seeing the lower half of Alf when I was watching the old sitcom.
It does feel wrong, doesn't it? Yeah, it kind of reminds you of the rare times on Alf when you get a full body shot and it's just like a little person in a costume.
Yeah, I just want to see Alf emerging from behind a couch or a counter. That's where he belongs.
And also, Garfield gets 2 lasagna lines, like 2 sounds you can't miss: a breaking piggy and the sizzle of hot lasagna.
I like Garfield's attitude in this because he has my attitude, where it's just like, Garfield, something's happening. I don't care. I'm hungry.
Yeah, it's this reminds me that I could be eating.
So yes, they're in Michael's room looking to see what's going on. Corey's knocking on Michael's door. She comes in to see him stealing her money and does not buy his story that it broke and he was trying to fix it. Which is if you're going to become a drug addict, get some good lies cooking up, Michael. Come on.
He's newly a drug addict. He'll work on better lies. I'm sure, 30 years from now, Michael's still telling lies to Corey to like borrow money and be like, no, it's not drugs.
Checks in the mail, man.
Yeah, my stupid landlord said I missed something. He's out to get me. Anyway, if you could just flow me this 1 month, Corey, please. It's your old Uncle Michael. Come on.
I'm good for it.
I like that even Alvin is just like, well, that's a crappy lie. Like Alvin, the habitual liar of his cartoon.
What a scoundrel. Yes. While Michael is talking to Corey, he shoves his drugs box under his bed. And that's when we find out what's happening, when shit gets real in this cartoon.
I hate to suggest this, but my guess would be marijuana. An unlawful substance used to experience artificial highs.
Nerd.
You're acting really weird.
So who asked you?
If you wanted some money, you could have said something. Are you feeling okay? What's wrong with your eyes?
Nothing. Leave me alone, will ya?
Michael, you always tell me everything. What's wrong?
Michael? Honey, where are you going?
I got some words for Simon, man. If it's from the ground, pound it down.
I mean, what a nerd. But also...
an unlawful substance.
I also like how he goes, I hate to judge. But... I feel like Simon shouldn't know what marijuana looks like.
Were they like playing a gig and people were smoking in like the audience or something?
I guess I mean, honestly, they could have opened for like any rock star and seen this kind of setup.
That's when they opened for Ween.
If they're going to have characters jump out of things, why one of them should have been out of a lunchbox and that's his stash box. Like it should be like his old Muppet Babies lunchbox and they jump out of that.
They really lost the soon like Bugs Bunny will just appear in the world and Daffy Duck. There's no
really
logic.
Lazy after that.
Yeah.
Well, same with like when all those characters walked through the hallway, Alf became his full size. Like they all went to full size instead of the standing on a dresser size that they were.
And the line Alf says, I don't think it's in the clip, but he's like, Toto, we're not in Cartoon Town anymore.
Yeah.
That signals like fun is over.
Yeah.
Fun is in this cartoon is over. The jokes are done. We're just going to be yelling at Michael for the next 20 minutes. Buckle up, kids.
Because in a normal cartoon, they couldn't say the word marijuana. And so once it's said, that is them, my old favorite saying, crossing the Rubicon. but it is them saying like, this is a very special episode now because Simon couldn't just toss off the word marijuana in a random episode.
Yeah.
If these cartoon characters are allowed to say specific drug names, then the entire thing has to be about
and
that.
they say 2 drug names, but man, what's in that drug box? I don't know if it's an animation error or just like we got to be vague, where it's just like inside the drug box is a tiny bale of hay, an ocarina, the Ocarina of Time is in there, matches, I think what looks like rolling papers, and something else. It's just like, what was he doing?
I think there's some brown colored joints, like they kind of go into the background, but they do
like
look
blunts,
like pre-rolled blunts. Yes, and the only thing I could spot the matches in the rolling papers, but I guess that bale of hay was like his cush all tied up in a baggie, I guess. But no, then it should be in a plastic bag. I mean, these are not, it's weird. They wanted it to feel real, but it's not realistic enough of what somebody's thing would be.
I'm just thinking of how much weed you could buy for $20 in 1990. And man, Michael's set for like at least a few months.
For sure, man. Yeah, he's that kind of deals back then. You couldn't, you were losing money not getting high.
Exactly. All the cartoon characters are reacting badly to Simon's hypothesis of drugs. I don't like that Winnie the Pooh knows what drugs are because he's like, oh my. Yes. And then Slimer's like, that's bad news.
At least, again, Slimer's gotten around. He's lived a full life and then died.
It's true.
But yeah, Pooh Bear, he doesn't even know what like pants are. Like his whole thing is that he's a silly old bear and that Christopher Robin explains simple things to him. Like he doesn't even understand that like bees are everywhere. Like, especially when he's a character from like 1930, like he really shouldn't know this.
There are parts of this where it's like baby characters are staging an intervention for this teenager and being very sincere, like, Michael, it's time we had to talk about your brain.
I'm with Michael that he shouldn't listen to any of these.
Get the fuck away from me.
Alf, at least he does get kind of upset when it starts going.
Listen, asshole, I don't have to be here.
But Pooh, Winnie the Pooh specifically shouldn't be there.
I've read the statistics.
I think there's a real clear demarcation starting with Pooh that the Disney characters can only go as far as TV level. Warner, they give you their big guns, but there's no Mickey, Donald, Goofy.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was not a surprise for me that the writers said they couldn't get Mickey or Donald or Goofy. They got the nephews, but Warner Brothers was more willing to work with them in terms of getting Bugs and Daffy.
Pooh and the nephews, they were big stars on the TV level then, so it's not like small potatoes, but if Warner gives you Bugs, they should get Mickey. Like, if I'm Warner, I would have said, like, no, then you don't get Bugs, you get Sylvester.
It'd be so weird if Mickey Mouse was in this, though.
Oh, yeah. No.
Gee, Michael, you really fucked up.
If I was Michael Eisner, who made the call to not have Mickey Mouse in this, or Katzenberg, they made the right call. Like, they would have been pulled down by this for sure.
Well, the worst part about this special is that so all the tunes escape. Pooh just like was waving from the window, and Act 2 begins inside the dangerous world of video games.
Oh God,
the corrupting force of gaming.
It's such an evil, twisted like that. Okay, again, the design there, they want it to look scary, but it actually looks cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in this special. The writer admits like this, a kid would think this was fun.
Yeah,
like this roller coaster looks fun.
Yeah, and you're going to a cool arcade and doing drugs with your friends, like good times. Like this.
They should be smart enough to know not to smoke the pot in the arcade.
Well, this also seems to come from the very like early 80s idea of like, oh, arcades are where drug dealers attack your children. Like they're scummy places. They're not Aladdin's Castle or the Happy Mall arcades that we knew. They want this to feel like it's the real world and then cartoons come into it, right? But this arcade is like straight out of Pinocchio. Like it's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon, and they need to treat some stuff realistically, but they gloss over some stuff or exaggerate some stuff, so the kids are learning nothing by watching this.
I gotta think at some point in pitching this was supposed to fully be Roger Rabbit in that it would be live action kids meeting cartoon characters.
And then they realize like McDonald's ain't gonna pay for that shit.
Yeah, no, that's way more expensive than just a 30-minute special.
They'll pay for 30 minutes of ACOM animation.
Yeah.
So this is when we meet Smoke. played by George C. Scott. He comes out of the weed, and then one of his friends says, "I got some crack." And oh boy, crack, if you were in white suburbia, crack was like the biggest fear of your parents, because it's like, sure, we smoked weed, but those are dangerous black people drugs.
Oh, yeah. And how it's portrayed in media, crack was always so racialized.
Yeah, like, 100%.
I mean, you just think of the things like that were just tossed off words we said as a kid, like, what are you on, crack? Like, if you wanted to say somebody was acting crazy.
Or if you want to say like a show was like zany, like, this show's on crack.
Yeah, it was seen as the most extreme. And I mean, also, like, this is the nightmares Joseph Biden was having then, of just like, these kids think things are normal with their weed, but then it'll be so easy the second somebody hands them crack to try, they'll do it instantly because they love pot so much.
So you can take a puff with corn pop in the backyard, but crack is way different.
They put those bongs in the water drums and they make some rusty. And sorry, I called you. Anyway, also I did notice that the guy offering crack is Wheeler from Captain Planet.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it's the same voice actor.
It's the same guy, yeah. And I remember like maybe 6 years ago or whatever, David Cross was on WTF with Mark Maron, and he talked about accidentally smoking crack. He was just handed something at a party. He's like, sure, I'll get high. And he smoked it, and he realized it was crack. And his response to that was to Mark Maron, like, I know why people smoke crack now. It was amazing. It was an amazing high. It felt really good. So it's just like, it was interesting to hear that from David Cross, of all people.
Yeah,
I'm not saying smoke crack, but he's like, I can see why it's so addictive. It's like an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I mean, and it's cheap and quick to make. Like, yeah, I can see why people would do it. I think I remember the late Harris Whittles talked about how nice it was. Like, but then he moved on to heroin, which made him feel even better. But no, like, but again, it's so racialized, crack too. Like, that's why they're so mad at it. Like, there's a bit in here too that should be more disturbing for what the potential is of just like, that they just toss off drunk driving or drinking as a kind of nothing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, just do that when you're older.
When the Michaels of the world are far more at risk, like statistically, from dying from alcohol-related stuff than they are from ever doing crack. But again, like you said, this is about warning people away from urban drugs, not
scaring big corporations like beer corporations and cigarette corporations from advertising on, your things.
Yep. Yeah. Also very true.
So yeah, before they can smoke the crack at this arcade, apparently.
They're all ready for it. These kids in 1990 are like, yeah, crack, cool.
Let's move on to crack, because this is the whole gateway hypothesis. It's a bunch of bullshit. So the cops show up. There's a big chase. There's a lot of chases in this that really kill time. Apparently the cops are after Michael. He's cornered in the alley.
Oh, and his friends abandon him.
He's abandoned by his friends.
Yeah, and the drugs guy too. It's them already showing you like, these aren't your friends, Michael.
Yeah, your friends won't be there and drugs won't be there for you when the cops come. Why do cops have to come? They just do.
Well, the cops are finally busting up that video arcade. I mean, you drive by that every day.
It's been a menace to this town.
Time to close it down.
So the shadow of the cop approaches Michael. He's pleading for mercy, but then we see a very familiar character being just a huge, unpleasant dick.
You're not a cop?
Okay, you win. You got me dead to rights. I'm not a cop. I'm a rabbit. But just because I got long ears doesn't mean there's nothing in between them.
You were running from a rabbit? He's a cartoon.
Look who's talking. You know, kid, you don't look so good. What's this? A joint? So what's the big attraction? I mean, how did you get started anyway?
I started because I wanted to. What do you care?
Call it curiosity, Doc. But if you're giving me that old cause I wanted to routine, maybe you need a little memory refresher.
A time machine?
I borrowed it from some coyote.
I like that line.
Yeah, vaguely clever. One of our riffs for this bit was, I've seen you in blackface, Bugs Bunny. Get off your high horse. It's like, what is this, a joint?
Yeah. He's seen a lot.
You're a real piece of crap.
God damn. I mean, also, Bugs is stealing valor. He's pretending to be a cop. That's
true.
Illegal.
That's worse than smoking drugs.
Yeah, well, it does feel like Warner insisted Bugs gets all these scenes to himself.
And looking at this again, watching it with a much closer eye in terms terms of animation quality. I like the best scenes are Bugs and Daffy. Like, I think they are able to send more drawings overseas, or at least give a lot more guidance on what would normally, like, the other characters aren't animated nearly as well as Bugs and Daffy.
Yeah, maybe that's a side effect of coming with a lot more rules from Warner, that Warner was more like, no, that's off model. Bugs doesn't look like that.
He can't look like he did in the Filmation specials.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, dear God. Yeah, like you said, this is Jeff Bergman. He's a good Bugs, but every Bug sounds wrong to me just because, like, Mel Blanc is Bugs to me.
Yeah.
Like, it'll never not be that way.
The
in my
Daffies that came after Mel, I can live with them, but the Bugses are just, it might be too specific of a voice that only he could really do.
I think that's the difference. Yeah, that Daffy, he does a good job with Daffy, but Daffy, Sylvester, like others of his, he's good at him. He's really good at him, but it never feels iconic. Like Bugs feels iconic to me in Blank's version of it.
There's a really good recent episode of the Gilbert Gottfried podcast. Please look it up. It's with Jeff Bergman and Rob Paulson together.
Ooh, I gotta listen.
Yeah,
to this.
really, really good.
Yeah.
So yes.
So what's the big attraction?
Oh yeah,
I love that line.
He has these like lame grandpa lines, and this is like, if everybody jumped off a bridge, would you?
Guess you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what bothers me about this is just like everybody is so unpleasant. It's just like all my cartoon characters, but they're all yelling at me and they're judging me.
There should have been more of the positive stuff. Like at the very end, Michelangelo says something like
way to go, bro.
You're good as you are. You don't need to change yourself. Like, but all the rest, it's like it's stick instead of honey. Like it's
We'll get to it. Michelangelo's like, you suck.
Yeah.
What'd you do? You disappoint me.
He's probably the mean. Like Bugs is close to the meanest.
Yeah.
And yeah,
like, was that the greatest fear for children? It's like they couldn't really threaten us with jail yet because they couldn't throw us in jail yet. But they're like, what if Michelangelo hated you?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I guess if I'm Joe Biden type, or if I'm a senator and saying to myself, they don't listen to their teachers, but they love these toys.
They love these fucking turtles.
Maybe if a turtle told them not to, they'll finally listen, because, well, they just imagine like all they've got are statistics. They didn't know kids then. And so they're just told like, these kids don't listen to anybody. They're super predators. They're monsters. What are we going to do? And so they think the only solution is having cartoon characters yell at them.
Deploy the Pooh Bear.
And this is where they cut to the dad noticing some beers are missing from his like beer crate.
His crate.
That's weird.
And it's like the mom is like, oh, you probably had some beer while you were watching the game last night. You clearly can't remember how much you drank, you piece of shit.
Yeah. But that's daddy drinking, so it's okay.
This show is like, well, he could have some beer. Daddy earned his beer.
Yeah. And that's all you see of daddy, really. Like he has
There's one more scene, but like we see nothing of mom.
Yeah, which they want. I mean, this is another mistake they make in this, that they're like, oh yeah, you should go to your parents with this. Like in 1990, there's a lot of parents who would teach their kids a lesson if they told them like, I've been doing pot. What?
Yeah,
you get a strong arm.
Or maybe they're doing drugs to escape that violence or whatever.
Yeah,
you don't know. Not to get too dark, but again, they don't say why. The only why is like, because I wanted to. Okay.
Well, in this idealized world, like they have to create parents that they want to tell kids that you can talk to their parents. So they have these perfect parents in this special go like, you can talk to me. We love you both so much. Like that's not a lot of parents. In 1990, probably fewer than now.
And Michael, a kid with no real problems.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the one time I'm on Bugs' side when he's giving him shit, he's just like, he should just say like, what did you have to even run away from? You're a dumb kid in the park. Like, fuck you.
You probably got a college fund.
Yeah.
Michael, get out of here. Mom thinks something is up, is asking Corey, like, what's going on with Michael? And she's like very reluctant to tell mom. But then Pooh tells Corey she should be a narc.
Excuse me, but why didn't you tell her?
Pooh! You can talk?
Of course I can.
But you never talked before.
Why, I believe you're right. But now I have something to ask, if you please. Why didn't you say you were worried about Michael too?
If I tell and he gets in trouble, he'll blame me.
Perhaps. But what will happen to him if you don't tell?
I smell a rat.
At least Pooh is written in character with his like, I suppose you're right. Like,
yeah.
That at least feels like him. But yeah, you're right. This is the B plot of this. The A plot is to tell kids to not fall for peer pressure and not do drugs. The B plot is if you are the little sibling, you're supposed to narc on your brother or sister. You're supposed to tattle. That's what the lesson they're teaching Corey is, which that's also pretty screwed up. I don't know. I guess younger siblings should help their family members not do drugs or be addicted to drugs. Sure. But this feels like you're just training kids to be a bunch of narcs, man.
Yeah. Call the police.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's one thing they're not doing is telling him to call the cops because, like, this Michael is doing illegal things, but if he were to be brought to the police, he might actually, like, go to jail
and have a record and ruin his life.
They don't want that. So let's just keep this internal. Like, let's not bother the cops with that stuff. Too much paperwork.
So, like any hack program, this steals from A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Because we have, like, the ghost of Michael past and later the ghost of Michael future shows up as Alf.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, this is pretty bullshit.
But they don't even reference him. They should at least be honest with what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, if Bugs is doing a joke about how everything's black and white in the past, then just say I ripped this off from A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, be honest is what I say. And so we're 2 years ago, everything's in black and white. Michael runs into some older boys and an older girl and thinks they're smoking cigarettes. He's got a really lame line about, are you cruising for lung cancer or something?
Yeah.
It's just like, they should have just taken him and beaten him.
Yeah,
beaten him on the grass.
Fuck you, kid. Like,
put the cigarette on and like,
he's again, what a dork, man. He should be lucky those cool kids wanted to share their drugs with him.
But they're smoking grass, and they ask him if he's scared to try it, and he says, I'm not scared. And Bugs gives him a bunch of shit about peer pressure. This is Bugs' worst moment, I think.
So, you still think it was your choice?
Well, I didn't want him to think I was a wimp.
Better a wimp than an all-day sucker.
Everybody's doing it.
Come on, it's no big deal. Do it.
It's like the old saying, if everyone was jumping off a cliff, would you go too? I guess you would, wouldn't you? Not very bright. Definitely not one of the world's foremost thinkers.
Hey, lighten up on my man here. He was just experimenting with some friends.
But they're my friends. They wouldn't do anything really wrong.
Well, what makes you think they know any better than you?
Hey, you needed me. All his cares went... No worries, no bothers.
Everyone's got problems, kid. Even us rabbits. The point is, nobody gets everything they want. What's important is what's in here. You know, what makes you you. You gotta believe in yourself.
What a bunch of shit.
God damn.
Like, I love how they couldn't write a better metaphor. It's like, as the old saying goes, if everybody jump off the cliff, would you? Like, he's got to, like, preface it with that because, like, what a cliche.
And then he's just like, we get it that he did, but then Bugs even has to say, like, I guess you would. Yeah, loser.
And I love Bugs Bunny saying, like, we all got problems, kid, all right? My wife's giving me shit. My job sucks. My back hurts.
But nobody gets everything they want, but fuck you if you need an escape. Like, I'm with the smoke in this scene. He's just like, yeah, he needed to relax. Like, and it was just some experiment. Like, fuck off. Give him a break. And then, of course, Bugs is like just lying to the kids. Like, it helps you get away with your problems for a little while, but eventually, it's like, well, eventually people don't explode.
Yeah,
Bugs.
yeah, from
like,
marijuana.
Yeah, again, this is just lies.
I got a big check from McDonald's.
If Bugs had just been upfront and said, doing pot will make you like lazier and you'll do less stuff and it'll rob you of your ambition, like any of that stuff, it would have been more listened to than just saying like, it is a road to death. Like, that's what pot is. But they tried to scare us too much. That was their tactic.
I mean, I would even argue against the fact that it makes you less productive because I smoked pot almost every day for like 10 years and I got through grad school, started several successful podcasts, worked several jobs. I was perfectly functioning member of society. I just waited till my work was over and I was like, okay, now I'll smoke some pot and watch like Beavis and Butthead or whatever.
You could have a PhD by now though if you were sober.
I should keep smoking pot.
No, I'm kidding.
I am now too busy to smoke pot, so I do it like once every 2 months when I remember I have it.
We joked about the smoking pot of the creatives on the Poochie episode of Talking Simpsons we did, where it's like, what were you guys smoking when you came up with that. And
we were eating rotisserie chicken.
And one of our guests joked about like, well, no, obviously you smoke it after work. You do your work and then you smoke it after.
Yeah, I didn't ever like write anything while high or like record anything while high. Like it was all like relaxed times.
Yeah, okay, yes. Even that's not entirely true, but if they were at least a little more realistic in the negative things they could say about pot, then I think people would have listened more, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, Corey goes to Dad.
The bug scene just ends, by the way. It just stops.
The what scene?
The scene with bugs. It's just like,
oh yeah,
dead stop. Just move to the next.
Just like smash cut to Corey approaching Dad in the garage, and a real Ron Swanson character doing some work in there.
Quite a dad. He's dad as fuck.
The real problem is like the negligent parents, because the dad just like yeah, Corey's weird because he's a teenager. Get out of here.
Yeah, maybe it's about a guilt trip for the parents too, just a little bit of like, if you paid more attention to your kids, they're stealing your beer or smoking your drug.
It's Saturday. He was going to have a beer, do some woodworking in the garage.
Give him a fucking break, man.
We all got problems, all right?
We all got problems.
So yeah, Corey finds no help with Dad. So all the kids are smoking weed out of this bizarre like pirate pipe or whatever.
Yeah, I guess
it's like the captain character in Tintin would be using it.
Right? Yeah, I guess it's what, a one hitter. Is that what the terminology would be for that?
I don't even think it just look like a bowl, you smoke weed out of. Yeah,
I see.
A one hitter is like a bong.
I'm more into edibles. That's my bag, baby. I have them once a year and they fuck me up. And I think
that's a problem. They get you too high and then you don't eat them anymore.
Yeah, then I just lay in bed all night going like, why'd I do this? I'm
going to die.
My brain I want to be free from my brain. This is too much thinking.
Be careful with edibles, everybody.
Yeah.
You can't die, but it's very easy to take too much.
See, this is good guidance here.
That's what Daffy Duck should be telling us. Like, work your way up to the regular dosage or whatever.
And $10 a crack. That sounds pretty good deal on crack.
Yeah,
man.
this like fucking Jenny Garth looking girl from 90210. It's like, I got some crack.
If I can get $10, I can score some crack. Yeah, I like that it's a diverse group of drug friends. It's just how most gangs in animated series are diverse.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the plight of a white child, but everyone's involved here.
Yeah, he has the one black friend.
Yes, but they're all corrupting him.
Yes, yeah.
We don't hear about their lives, but yeah, like she wants to get crack, and Michael's like, I don't know, crack, that sounds pretty serious, and he's like, I'm gonna get out of here. And the smoke guy steals his wallet that looks like a checkbook and throws it to the blonde girl. So I'm like, wait, he can interact with reality?
Yeah, when that girl says, got your wallet, it's like, wait, what did you see? What did you see, girl?
Yeah, did it like float out of his pants?
I'm guessing she must have... In his mind, he's seeing the smoke guy, but the girl pulls it out of his pants. Yes, carefully say that. But she takes his wallet, and the drugs are doing it through her. Let's say that.
It's a visual metaphor.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, also your friend just robs you. Like, these people aren't your friends, Michael.
No. I'm surprised there's no like Christian message in here.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's like astoundingly is absent in this.
I could see them going like, well, let's not get too far on that. I mean, Jesus,
you have to go to church, Michael. Ha! That's my best Alf. I'm sorry.
And then he just chases after her, and that's when he falls into the sewer.
Yeah, it's great because we see him chasing after the girl. The girl runs over a manhole, and you're like, I know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Oh, the second you see that manhole, you've been waiting this whole time.
We don't hear any stings of the theme song like we do with some of the characters, though.
Yeah, what the fuck? We get to hear the Pooh Bear theme like almost in its entirety.
Chuck Lorre wanted a big fat paycheck.
I don't care. I ain't doing this pro bono for George H.W. Bush. Fuck him.
And again, Michelangelo appears in a void separate from every other character. He's just too big. And I mean,
he doesn't even have his weapons either.
Oh, that's true. And again, yes, we know he's the party dude. Why is he the one in this?
It should really be Donatello. No, Leo. This is the speech for Leo.
The most boring character should be giving this speech.
Especially with Michelangelo in the cartoon. His entire character is Spicoli from Fast Times.
Oh my God, you're right.
Which is a stoned character.
Now I'm thinking of ultimate team-ups. I want Lorenzo Music, Garfield, Alf, Raphael, and Lorenzo Music Peter Venkman.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
The sleepy, sarcastic crew.
Hey, well, yeah, they're all just being sarcastic to each other in a row. Like they're just they just all are dicks to each other for 20 minutes.
I want to see that cartoon make it in 1989. I'd watch it. But yes, Michelangelo, I don't know. Do you think he's the biggest dick in this?
I think he is.
Like, the show wants to let you know, like, Michelangelo is very disappointed in you.
He's the most sarcastic, I think. So, yes, I think he's the biggest jerk.
If you play the arcade game, do not select him. He will hate you. Let's hear him be a jerk.
Cowabunga, dude! How did you ever get so totally cool?
What am I doing down here?
Like you fell through a radical hole, dude. You could have avoided it, but you weren't thinking. Come to think of it, that's a lot of your problem.
What problem?
Drugs, bud. Your brain must be, like, really messed up.
Drugs don't do anything to your brain. They just make you feel good, right, Mikey?
Right.
Whoa, dude. If you're taking his word for it, you're really in trouble. Better see for yourself.
What are you talking about?
This.
He pulls a plug and they go down the drain.
That sewer water's insane too.
Yeah, it's psychedelic. Man, I wish this would have turned into Michelangelo giving good drug advice. Like, I see you as more of like an indica type, so
I think you're messing up with what you're using, man. He just is like, how'd you get so totally cool?
Even as Cowabunga is just like dripping with hatred, like Cowabunga. Yeah, that's what you want to hear me say.
Oh, hey, it's your old pal. Pfft, come on. Yeah, he shouldn't be this dickish. It's really just not fitting for Michelangelo. And yeah, like you said, he's free. He's not around the other characters. He will be later, but
in a separate shot. Like,
yeah.
In a very poorly drawn Michelangelo that makes me laugh every time.
In this case, Mikey is just fully separate from them, and it's just a scene from the Ninja Turtles show, you know? But he's such a dick. He can also see the Smoke Man too. And I feel like the Smoke guy, what he's supposed to say is actually what all like the full of themselves intellectuals saying, like all the pussy psychologists who say, here's why people do drugs. It's just experimenting and it just makes them feel good. Like then Michelangelo has to be the tough talking guy. He's like, well, the facts are it's ending his life and maybe you don't care, but I do.
There's like a weird Protestant thing in this where it's just like, well, pleasure is wrong.
Yes.
Like you don't want artificial pleasure. Yeah. Yikes.
You know what? If you feel bad, that's life, kid. Come on.
Yeah, we all got problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're right. A lot of Protestant guilt in here.
So yeah, Michael and the drugs ghost, they get sucked down this hole and they fall into a roller coaster with Kermit and Piggy. And, because it's Muppet Babies, they're going to take a trip through the human brain.
Oh, yeah, you're right. This is very Muppet Babies sequence then. I also wondered if Michelangelo connected to the Muppet Babies because they both got Henson connections there.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Mikey in the live action version.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be out at this point, right?
You're right. Yeah. It would have just come out. Number one at the box office.
So at this point, like, if you do drugs, you'll get to go on the coolest roller coaster with the Muppet Babies.
It's true. It's pretty fun.
I like it.
As all the Muppet Babies scream at you. And I also think, like, I don't know which other characters I'd sub in here. And you need the Muppet Babies because they are, like, some of the highest rated characters on TV. But, like, the baby characters should not be the ones giving the "this is your brain on drugs" speech.
I laugh the hardest at the sincere Kermit in this. Michael, we need to talk. You're having some real problems, buddy, and I'm worried about you, man.
And also in this sequence, they're trying to have Miss Piggy still do her whole bit of like being too forward with.
I know.
Kermit.
She's like, "Oh, we're gonna go with a tunnel of love." I can't do the voice, but man, it's nuts.
What is it? Actually, it's not fun. sorry, listeners.
It's a rough voice. I mean, the fact that woman could do that voice and sing in it, like, kudos to her. But man, I can't deal with it.
Again, I can't believe I watched every single Muppet Babies like 8 times over as a kid with these voices. It's crazy.
So we're gonna hear my favorite part of this is sincere Kermit. Frank Welker, my hat's off to you.
You see, Michael, drugs can take you up and make you feel okay for a while.
Yeah, I'll say.
But for every up, there's a down. And the bigger the up, the steeper the down.
You're gonna owe me big for this one, Frog.
your brain, Michael.
Actually, this is just one artist's conception. Hey, this isn't romantic. It's not even pretty. And most important, I don't like it in here.
Was that Gonzo line just like a mandatory thing? Like, well, this is a metaphor.
That does feel like covering their asses.
Yeah.
So you got like hey, citations needed here, Kermit. Like, well, okay, look, it's one artist's interpretation. This isn't really what the inside of your brain looks like.
We're getting lost in the details here, Michael. The point is, like just hearing the baby character saying like how to, drugs, you'll need them to get back to normal.
Yeah, just to feel normal. And they're all just shouting at you in their crazy voices that are all pitched up. Like Gonzo at least gets to just have a fun line, but then he even gets shoved into the roller coaster. I do like his weirdos and pigs first when they jump out. R.I.P. Rusey. She's, again, the greatest. But that the babies, the ones called babies.
Yeah, like this. Kermit's reading from a pamphlet to Michael in this roller coaster. It's
the
nuts.
Up, the harder the down.
And this whole metaphor where like drugs are a carnival or an amusement park, it's just like when you're 8 years old in 1990, don't you always want to be in an amusement park?
Yeah.
Like it's a terrible idea.
I don't know. What could they have done instead? But this roller coaster thing, I guess, was some doctor, one of the doctors credited in this, told him like, talk about how it's ups and downs and how if you feel good at one point, that just means you're going to feel even worse when it's over.
But feeling worse going down is the most fun part of a roller coaster. So the analogy doesn't work.
Yeah, that's. I guess when you call something a roller coaster ride, it's like you mean good, right?
Yes, it's really fun. Yeah, so ultimately the metaphor is like doing drugs is like going to an amusement park with all your favorite characters, and they're all real and they all know your name.
I mean, that is a drug trip. The drug trip they have later in this is like, it just looks fun.
Yeah,
it looks awesome.
I want to go there.
I think the biggest like realistic nightmare image in this is the one that comes next of just like you can't control yourself on a skateboard and you might fall and hurt yourself. Like
skateboarders famously do not smoke weed.
No. To me, that is kind of a nightmare image of I can see myself doing something, but I can't stop it. Like, and you're trapped in your own head. That is drugs for me of just, I'm more trapped in my head, not freer from it.
That's when you put on the music.
Yeah, I should have.
Or the fun cartoons. But
man, I'm totally going to get, I'm going to give another round on that edibles next time.
This is really inspiring us to take drugs, this whole podcast. But so Michael, in the real world, he is just like, taking a hit of weed. And he's taking off on his skateboard. And I love just like, the baby characters are just like hotboxing inside Michael's head. Because it's like, who can breathe in here? Let's get out of here.
They're getting the contact high, these characters are.
But one important part of this is like, the Muppet Babies are abandoning him.
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, Michael, you're on your own.
That's right. Dicks, man. You don't care that much, Muppet Babies.
They're jerks. And so, he tumbles off of his skateboard onto the grass. And we meet some familiar characters and get a bit of a fun, awful song.
What's happening to me?
Are you okay?
Huh? Now I'm seeing ducks? Oh, man. I gotta get off of these drugs.
Huh. Drugs? Oh, bad news, Michael. Why don't you just say no?
Well, maybe it's because I don't want to.
Maybe it's because you don't know how. Let's show him how to say no.
No.
Well, you look like three fine lads. I might have something here you'd like to try. Something to make you feel real good.
There's myriad wild and wonderful ways to say no. No thanks. No way.
Better learn if you and take him wherever you go.
No thanks, no sir.
If your pal says let's get high.
Here's a practical reply.
Go ahead, let's try. Spit right in his eye and say no.
The best part of this song is you hear Baby Kermit say, let's get high, and also,
let's get wrecked. You're right.
Let's get wrecked. Sorry, it's hard to say in the Kermit voice. That's why Frank Welker is a paid professional, and I'm not.
It's this must be why they gave, I think they were having fun giving all those lines to Kermit, especially.
Yeah.
But also, waking up to see all three of the nephews. In listening, it sounds like just one of them's there, but it's all three.
It's all three of them, and a real, pro-American message with Alf blasting through the Berlin Wall, which just fell in December of '89.
Yeah, that's like the best.
I want a gif of Alf smashing through the Berlin Wall. It is the most crass American thing in the world.
That's really great because I feel like the song that was written for him it's just a reference to in Berlin they just say 9, and they tell me that works fine. But then the animator's like, oh, the wall just came down. Let's animate Alf busting down that wall. That's
very topical.
I love seeing Alf do that. Alf breaking down the Berlin Wall is the most stirring image to me.
I do. I kind of think the song is catchy, and I've had the Garfield part of it in my head as I was walking up here. It's like, you could say beat it, get lost, get out of my face with that stuff.
But that could seem careless. So prefer cool.
Yeah, like this.
I'll catch you guys later. Okay, I got too much homework. That's rough. I'm late for my baseball game. So
my hamster died.
That's harsh too.
Yeah. But I like how it's like Garfield is true to Garfield. He's like, be a sassy son of a bitch. These people.
Tell them to fuck off.
Be like, I'm addicted to food. I'm going home to eat lasagna.
But I think Ashman and Menken, if they have a flaw in this song, it's trying to be too fun.
It's almost unintelligible too with all these character voices.
When I was 7, I definitely didn't understand that the real message of this song was how to just say no in a million different types of ways. Like they outright say these are excuses you can use the rest of your life. So save these for the rest. But I couldn't follow pretty much any of them. It just goes by too fast, and all their voices are too crazy.
It is, and it's like what the writer of this said, where it's like Nancy Reagan's Just Say Nothing was so patronizing, where, again, it ignores the reasons why people do drugs and also frames it as the only circumstances in which you do drugs is if someone gives you them or offers you them. I was never offered drugs. When I wanted to do drugs, I was never offered drugs. I was given more pressure to eat meat than to do drugs.
Oh, yeah. You still say now, I'm good. I know meat for me. Well, and then it's the Spanish Inquisition about why.
You got to go on trial. No one, when I turned out, if I was just I don't want to get high now, no one's like, come on, man, are you chicken?
It's just they would just say, oh, more drugs for me.
Yeah, it's like, great. Oh, cool, let's watch a movie or something.
Yeah, I can get high with the stuff I would have given you, so good for me. I think I like Michelangelo's I got too much homework. It's rough.
Oh, yeah, he appears. Oh, and one thing I found hilarious and almost like a sacrilege is when Alf silences Bugs before he can sing.
I love that.
Forget it, Doc.
I love that one because also Tigger is in no other part of this special. He just appears for this song.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's like Alf thought he was going to supplant Bugs as I'm the new hero, me.
So my guess is that Bugs, they wrote that line for Bugs, and then they're like, Bugs can't sing.
Bugs and Daffy are not going to be singing in this. I'm sorry.
And then they turn it into a great joke of Alf steals the line from Bugs. That's funny.
But what a moment in history where Alf upstage Bugs. Can you imagine?
Just in an official capacity, Alf gets to silence Bugs and say his line.
It's why Alf had to die.
It's Bugs finally got his revenge. I think one of my other favorite drawings in this too is when it's the end and Michelangelo is like, respect yourself. He does this weird neck move that it's just odd. It's off model for the Turtles for sure.
I'm not sure what they were trying to imply with that drawing. It was very weird.
I guess it's like a sassy head shake as he's saying the lines, I guess, but it's weird. It's really weird. It's since I saw it at 7, it has stuck with me of why does his head move like that?
The one that's really funny Michelangelo is at the end where he's they're all saying platitudes. He's pointing in the sky and there's a really weird upshot under him. It's just very weird.
Oh yeah, that's another. I think yes, the most off model this gets is with the Turtles. Maybe that was the company least involved in this.
I was wondering, did Wang draw the Turtles before?
Maybe not. That's probably why it was best they were stuck to having just one turtle.
So
and Winnie the Pooh says pretending to be allergic, which again it's I don't want to imagine Winnie the Pooh turning down pot by saying he's allergic to it.
That's true. Get him out of this song. Yeah. And then Michael wakes up in his bed. Was this a hallucination?
I love how he's that was a nightmare. It's you're telling me they're at least having good jokes about being yelled at by all these characters in a song is terrifying.
This was not entertaining at all. Imagine if this was on TV. I wouldn't watch it.
I guess this is the last time they try to pretend it's half real because oh, that was just a nightmare. That didn't happen in reality where he was surrounded by characters.
So he was running from he was running, chasing that girl who stole his money, fell into the sewer, and then what?
Yeah, I guess the second he would have stepped in the sewer, let's say he just fell on the ground and smashed his head.
But there was never him skateboarding while high and falling into the grass or anything?
I guess not.
It's really weird.
Or else he just, after then he must not have met bugs either. Maybe, honestly, he just fell asleep the second he stole from his sister, and all of it's been a dream.
God, brought on by dangerous marijuana. But yeah, he's back in his room.
The last thing I want to say about the song, sorry.
Oh, no, go for it.
There was a really good, one of those group effort reanimate things that you'll see online.
Yes.
There's a really good one of this full song.
Yes. I got to watch that one again. It's really good. So yeah, he's back in his room, time to do more drugs. And Corey comes in with Pooh Bear, and she's sort of using Pooh Bear as a device. Tell Pooh Bear what's wrong. He'll listen to you. He's like, tell Pooh Bear to mind his own fucking business.
Love that line. Yeah. Pooh gets crapped on a lot in here.
I don't give a shit.
Oh yeah. Miss Piggy also ends the song by telling people to karate chop their drug dealers, which that's an endorsement of violence.
Yeah. And what if they pull a gun on you or something?
Yeah. I think the drug dealer's not going to like that karate chop.
And then he threatens Corey and realizes he crossed the line. He hurt her. He hurt her physically.
Yeah, it's sad. It's there's a quick shot of him crying.
It's a famous marijuana rage I've heard about, where you smoke marijuana and just start fighting people.
If you got to hear about Winnie the Pooh this much, you're gonna get mad.
Exactly.
We're all on it.
Yes, I'm aware of Winnie the Pooh. Please go away. He feels bad. The drugs ghost is like, you did the right thing, and he's not sure. Michael opens the box and sees his horrible reflection. He's turning into a weed zombie, and that reflection turns into Alf for some reason. And then he's pulled into this Alf dimension, which reminds me of the Beetlejuice world or something.
Yeah. I like how he can pull him in through the reflection of his shiny metal box, a very reflective box he keeps his weed in. And Alf's just straight up lying to him about well, you're going to be this. No, he's not.
So Alf is the ghost of Christmas Future in our next clip.
Yeah.
If that's me, I'm in serious trouble. We gotta do something about this.
Hey!
Hey!
I just saw myself. Man, I look great.
Uh-huh. The thing is, we don't always see things the way they really are. This one, for instance. What do you see?
Me. I see me.
Wrong! Flag on the play, 10-point penalty.
Who's that?
Well, it's not Freddy Krueger. This is you. Pretty pitiful, huh? You see, drugs aren't your pal. They're your enemy, storming the battlements, trying to take control.
I could quit if I want to. I'm in charge of my life.
Wrong! Not if you're on drugs. If you don't believe me, talk to the man in charge.
But that's me. I'm in charge of my life. The man in charge.
Hi, Mikey.
I feel like Alf is probably in recovery at this point.
Yes,
the way he's talking, I feel like these are the things he learned in 12-step programs
He's
or whatever.
look, I've been there, okay? I'll tell you.
You're never really cured, Michael.
Drugs aren't your pal. Wrong. I think he at least comes with a little more compassion than Michelangelo, but the crackhead vision he gives him is just that's a lie. And it also, the transformation he goes through, it feels like more of the racist thing of you'll stop being white, Michael.
Your skin will darken. If this was let's say 20 years later, while he was in his bedroom smoking harmless weed, mom would be drinking wine and taking Xanax. Dad would be popping oxys, just be, those are normal parents' drugs.
They got prescribed by a doctor, Michael. Yeah. But also he's pretty stupid how long it takes him to read Man in Charge. Michael's not very smart.
The man in charge. Yeah. And in the reality of this world, Michael was pulled into the Alf dimension because when Corey comes back, he's not there.
Yeah, that's true. The next time we see him in the real world, he's busting out of a closet. He's using it as an escape from his gayness, really. He feels shame
coming out of that closet. It's
But the smoke man, very off model when he turns around in the chair. Then he turns into his regular design, and then we all know he's evil, but then he turns into a skull face just to really drive it home.
There's some subliminal stuff in this, I guess, because there'll be a frame or two with his face face is a skull.
Yeah.
It's just like, I get it.
I guess they just won't want you to like him in any possible way. And he doesn't seem cool. Unlike a lot of the visuals they give the drugs man is not cool. But he is able to bilocate because he can be in Michael's brain and talking to Corey at the same time.
That's true. He's got more powers than ALF in this cartoon.
Drugs are pretty powerful. That's why they need to all unite against drugs.
So Corey goes to find Michael again. She sees his drugs box, and the drugs ghost is trying to tempt her. And Pooh, intervenes. But I love how he's just thrown in the cabinet by George C. Scott.
He's right. He's a silly old bear. And if you're not well, this Smoke actually does know a lot more about drugs than Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh knows nothing beyond the 100-acre wood.
Yeah, there's a ticking clock here because Corey could do the drugs. I got to say, someone had to show me how to smoke weed. An 8-year-old's not going to figure this out.
No, we've seen what's inside that box.
Yeah, she's going to play the ocarina.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I suppose the danger is, what if she just thought, I'm supposed to eat this joint? Yeah. She could easily OD, that's the danger in here, not using it normally, but overdosing perhaps, though. I mean,
she'd just get sick if she ate weed.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
And, I mean, look, we don't want a child accidentally taking weed. That's not good.
No.
Yes, this is
wait until your brain is done developing and then do harmless drugs.
Yeah.
So there's a really super long, padded out scene of Michael in this carnival of his own mind.
And it's a huge cut. It's just wait, you were just in your boardroom with the man in charge. Now you're in a carnival?
And it takes forever. Even the writer was like, I don't know why we needed this. And this looks like fun. A kid would think, well, I want to go here.
It's awesome. It's the Psycho Clown Circus, man.
And Huey, Dewey, and Louie are trying to kill him. It's they've turned on him.
Yeah. I don't understand why that's happening. And if I'm Disney, I'm like, wait, why are my main characters in DuckTales trying to murder this guy?
They stopped trying to help him. They turned on Michael. And Michael...
You're lost, Michael.
You're dead to us now. Michael eventually gets knocked into this wet devil's mouth and falls into it. And
it
Piggy...
grossed me out even as a kid.
It's gross. And Piggy and Tigger are, riding on a canoe in this devil's mouth.
Oh, yeah. And they try to save him, but it fails. Yeah. And then Piggy also sucks him up through a straw.
Well, first he goes down through this. I wrote down in my notes, he's on the raft. He's like, now drugs are like a fun water ride. I want to go on a water slide. And then, he ends up in Piggy's soda cup and she spits him out.
Well, there's some giant, freaky monster drawings. And this is definitely a bad drug trip animation. That's what they're calling from. This comes from, I believe Milton Gray worked on Heavy Metal, a drug trippy ass movie. And so he's kind of just, well, I don't know if he worked on this sequence, but this definitely calls to mind the intentional drug imagery of Heavy Metal, though for an anti-drug stance instead.
Yeah, the logic of the dream doesn't make any sense, so I'll just cut to the end where he tumbles through this carnival not sideshow, but carnival game where all these bottles are stacked. He gets trapped in a bottle and then eventually recovers from all of this, and finally he sees a fortune teller booth. Mm-hmm. And that's when we meet one of our more popular characters, and I love one of his lines in this one.
Oh yes, I can see it all. Well, some of it. Come in, my fine young friend, and I'll peer into your future in my little crystal ball.
Come on, Corey, your big brother uses it.
And if I do what Michael does, maybe we could be friends again.
Sounds right to me. What do you say?
This is odd. The picture is very dark. All I can see is...
You're looking into a bowling ball.
Yes, of course. That would explain the 7-10 split.
There. Now can you see my future?
Of course I can. I've got a knack for this sort of thing, you know. Look closely. Closely. Your future lies behind those doors.
I don't think I want to see this.
So yeah, Michael is a drugs zombie in this scene.
Just a shaking, quivering, like near corpse.
Holding like a badly drawn syringe, too.
Yeah, barely even picks up. Crack is the only other thing named. Like, they should have said, like, well, of course, after crack, you went to heroin, and then it's just dead Bill. I mean, I think implicit in the heroin stuff is also getting AIDS as well.
Oh, yeah. That could be it. Like any kind of needle drug use or whatever.
But the Daffy section is like the last joke. Like, that's the last time there's any humor in this.
Well, we heard this in the intro, but I want to hear it again. It's like, I love this line coming out of Daffy Duck.
This is my future?
It is if you don't get off those drugs.
What an old man. Get off the spec, Michael. Come on.
There's also some great anime like flashes in the bulb too. But it never hit me that this is just Christmas Carol, but this is Christmas Carol.
I think this is like, I watched it like again, like 15 times for that riff that we wrote, but this is the first time I think I picked up on it where it's just like, oh yeah, this old device.
Yeah. Act 1, Act 1 is the introduction. Act 2, you got Bugs taking him to the past. Act 3, the song happens in present day, but that was a dream too.
Yeah.
And then Act 4 is the future.
Oh yeah, I thought present was missing, but no, present was like the hallucination of the song and him falling off the skateboard and stuff.
Yeah, and in fact, he even wakes up in bed just like Scrooge does from the present dreams.
What day is this today?
It's 420.
Oh, well, I'll recover tomorrow then.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be the final gut punch for viewers to be like, here is your end. If you even touch that weed, you will be this. I mean, he's basically on a morgue slab.
This next scene where all the characters are like giving platitudes reminds me of the end of Evangelion. Not the movie, but the TV series. Like Michael's in a void. Should be like sitting in a chair and like spotlights fall on characters. It's like, you did such a good job, Michael. Congratulations.
Right. They are all telling him how to have self-worth.
Yeah.
And, it's actually the exact same scene. You're right. From episode 26 of Ava.
Anno ripped it off.
I mean, honestly, it's possible some staff there was crossover in the overseas productions of both.
Let's hear some of that classic scolding. They've all got a line here.
Oh, God.
Listen to us. We care about you, Mikey.
What's up, Doc, is your life, if you don't cut it out.
There's nothing cool about a fool on drugs.
Just believe in yourself.
Yeah, you're excellent just the way you are, without drugs.
How do I get out of here?
All of those statements are on bookmarks somewhere.
You're right. Yeah, God. I love how he's like, get no more of this, please. Like,
stop shouting at me. That's what the viewers are shouting too. Like, how do I get out of this special?
I want this to end. I couldn't watch anything else on any of my child channels. It's on Saturday morning.
I was thinking like when Teacher was hungover from a night of responsible for like legal drinking. Was this put on for kids like in 1991 or whatever?
For sure. This played in a lot of classrooms, I bet. I think, did you order the poster, by the way, that they promoted this?
Oh, no.
I feel like I tried, but I don't recall. If I had it, it would have been up in my room.
I like that this has merch. How awful.
But also, if I was Michael, I'd say to Miss Piggy, like, you don't even fucking know me, Miss Piggy. You don't care about me.
You're a baby.
You're a baby. You've lived no life. Like, I'm not listening to you. You think your nanny runs the world, Miss Piggy.
I want to see like Joe Biden appear in this or something. We're Strom Thurmond.
Yeah. It's right, son. You gotta not do those drugs.
But yeah, Michael materializes back in his room. He falls out of the closet, right?
Yes, yeah. He busts out that closet. Like, also when they're all talking to each other with this line, like, there's one more Alf line, but Alf's off screen. I feel like Paul Fusco showed up for ADR. Like, I think he was more giving with time than others, and I think him and music were probably the most playing ball with this thing. But he busts out the closet just in time to save his little sister that he loves so much.
Yeah, he like slaps the box out of her hands. He said, "I was wrong," and Corey's like, "Tell mom and dad, I'll help you too." So it's a very nice ending because Michael lives in the perfect family with no consequences to his actions.
Yeah,
he's lucky a real cop didn't arrest him and that he's white. Also.
Yep, and all this. Thank God I'm white.
Yeah,
as the classic "I accuse my parents" joke goes.
Oh man, we were watching that one. I think. think I was watching that with Nina. That got the biggest laugh.
That's the
where
best
the judge is
line.
like, "I'll let you off because you learned a lesson."
That's one of my all-time favorite riffs.
Yeah,
but
that's on YouTube on the MSD3K channel. I think
worth watching.
Yeah.
But yeah, Michael throws out the smoke man, and he threatens him of just like, "I'll be back, and you can bet on it." And that's at least the closest to realistic of just like, well, yes, if you have addiction issues, having one good day where you beat it that day doesn't mean it goes away forever.
Yeah, at least they kept that in there, but he's just so easily dispatched in a very non-clever way. Like he's thrown out of a window and lands on a garbage truck, and that's it.
He should have at least he should have dissipated when Michael flushes his pot down the toilet or whatever.
Yeah.
And again, they cut away from the tough stuff too of him talking to his parents. It ends with him saying let's talk to mom and dad. It's well, what did mom and dad say? I kind of want to see their reaction to this.
Is Michael okay? Is what I want to know.
Yeah, I think Michael got some tough love there, but at least they also free Winnie the Pooh right before the end. They don't leave him trapped in that cabinet, I guess you'd call it.
A horrible fate for a toy. Let's hear the very end of this special.
I'll be back, and you can bet on it.
He's right, He will try to come back.
And when he gets here, we'll be ready for him. Right, guys?
Right! Oh, thank goodness. I thought I was going to miss something important.
Come on, sis. Let's go talk to Mom and Dad.
And they all assemble on their poster.
Yeah. It makes me think the poster was early in the plans. They're like, and we'll give away a free poster to these kids too if they watch the whole video.
How cynical and awful. I don't want to remember this with a poster.
The poster doesn't show the smoke guy or anything related to drugs.
No.
So it's just a fun picture of all your favorite characters.
Smurfette's on, but Michelangelo isn't.
Yeah, that man, maybe the TMNT came in pretty late there, Maybe
they're like, you can't use Michelangelo to advertise this.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they could. Playmates is calling their bluff on it, or Scholastic are like, "Hey, we didn't give you the rights to that."
And this ends with a maudlin ass song.
This song.
What bothers me about this is the entire special is your cartoon characters come to life and yell at you, and then in the end, when it's all over, they sing a song about how they're gonna die and you'll forget them.
Yeah. Oh
and
my
just
God.
Christ, you're bringing me down, Cartoon All Stars.
As you get older, you may forget us. But keep this in the back of your mind. It's obscenely
I think it's
earnest.
with how sad these characters are singing about Michael forgetting them, or the child watching this. It's they know they're going to be forgotten, but keep the drug message in your head.
If you remember anything, which that shows these cartoons were wrong. We remember the cartoons and forget their drug scare tactics.
Exactly, and our job is remembering cartoons, so we proved all of them wrong.
I think the weakest. Well, the earnestness of the song is harsh, especially because characters kind of have to give a ballady croon when they have high voices.
Yeah, when Gonzo's calling you kid, hey kid, chin up kid.
And though also I think it's crazy to hear ALF and Garfield singing this with earnestness too, which is that's all wrong for these characters.
It's the We Are the World of 80s cartoon characters.
You are so right. Yeah, I have a feeling that's exactly what they were going for.
I just love how wrong. I mean, of course there are drugs that are bad for you, but this is all focused on marijuana being the gateway drug, the biggest fear. We all know that's bullshit. It's very vindicating to see 30 years later this has all been uncovered as harmful propaganda and just a cynical commercial for all of these characters.
Yeah, and
McDonald's. Sorry.
Yeah, oh yeah, and the dominoes are falling to full American legalization of it. It's happened in enough states that eventually I think it'll be legal everywhere.
And to get very depressing, it's sad to see places I come from have completely been devastated by opium epidemics.
God, yeah.
And people are making big money off of that.
Yep.
Horrible families that should be in prison are making tons of money off of overprescribing opium.
Yep. Yeah. It's devastating communities.
Opioids. Sorry.
Yeah, it's devastating communities in ways that crack did as well. but the news is paying more attention to it in a softer way now than they were when it wasn't white communities dealing with it. Yeah, but I guess the last thing I noticed in the credits was that executive committee. Like, they did get kind of everybody. It's like Bill Hanna, Ken Spears, Gene McCurdy, Margaret Loesch, and Phil Roman all there.
Apparently, in terms of the credits of the characters, they forgot to include Mirage Studios in the TV airing, but they're on the VHS airing, which is what this is a rip of.
Okay, all right. That's interesting. I do think that at least all those executives, maybe they're just the ones who can call each other to be like, hey, where's the model sheet for Garfield? We need that, or whatever. Like, maybe that's how they those executives named were just the people calling each other to sort it out. But, Hanna-Barbera, they should have been pissed of like, all you want's the Smurfs, really? We'll give you Yogi Bear.
We got Huckleberry Hound floating around over here, not doing anything.
Augie Doggy has so much to say about drugs.
I'm more of a doggy daddy kind of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to say, like, you probably heard jokes about this before, and I have too, and it's fun to make fun of because it's ridiculous. But we also wanted to provide the context of this, even though it was kind of depressing, and I think that's important too because it's a bad cartoon. It's awful. It's poorly animated. The song is just terrible. But I think just like the purpose of it is evil.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like even with well-meaning people who worked hard on it, which I think definitely that's true about people who worked on it who came from a position of just wanting to help kids. But at the core of the war on drugs was just evil, racist messaging that you didn't even have to, like, what was evil about it was that a lot of people didn't see that. And if people told them, like, the people who were telling others, like, no, this is war on drugs is actually kind of wrong, they were just seen as you're part of the problem. You're trying to stop drugs. Like, come on. So out of context, seeing frames of animation that were official drawings of Michelangelo standing next to Huey, Dewey, and Louie, or Alf grabbing Bugs Bunny's mouth. Like, these are funny images to me and they do make me laugh. And I get a special enjoyment out of just the incredible kitsch of it, of like, this would never happen again.
Yeah.
It's an impossibility and it's fun to see in that way. But the second you engage with it beyond just a single frame of it or looking at it, it's just at best a bring down and at worst like something that makes you like red with rage in all it did to the America.
So hopefully we brightened up your 420 or 413 if you're on the Patreon. But obviously we don't want children to do any drugs or anything like that. But we think, let's not punish people criminally. Let's legalize safe drugs and crack down on like opioids and all that crap. You know where we're coming from. You listen to our podcast long enough. We have to put our leftist messages in everything we do.
That's right.
Because it informs our entire personality. But thank you for listening to this episode of What a Cartoon. We really appreciate it. And if you want to support the show and get all kinds of extra podcasts on top of that, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And if you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get every episode of Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. But you'll also get access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That's over 100 bonus podcasts. That also includes all of our mini-series, which have included so far Talking Critic, Talking of the Hill, Talking Futurama, and just around the corner, we'll be hitting Talking Mission Hill. The first episode will be free to all. The second episode will only be available on the Patreon, and every other episode after that will only be on the Patreon at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, the only place to get those limited mini-series and everything else we've done on the Patreon for the past almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Henry, what is happening at that $10 level? We've got one super long bonus podcast once a month that's voted on by patrons. The last one was over 4 hours long.
Yeah, that's right. That's the What a Cartoon movie, which if you're on the free feed, you hear the 1 hour preview of that once a month. But if you'd like to hear the full things, usually over 4 hours long, you got to sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. In March, we did the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. So much fun. What a great underrated film, I would say. And in April, we're going to be doing the Lupin the Third Castle of Cagliostro film, the amazing first film fully directed by Hayao Miyazaki. So much fun, and you can only hear the full thing if you are a $10 and up patron at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And one more thing, just want to thank again our super premium patron, Phil Jacobi, who picked out this podcast subject.
It was so much fun to review. revisit. I really enjoyed the misery of the special because it's so much fun to talk about. But yes, as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast outside of this network is Retronauts. That's a classic gaming podcast. Find it wherever you find podcasts or go to patreon.com/Retronauts to get 2 exclusive episodes every month that won't be available outside of that Patreon. So again, that is patreon.com/Retronauts for extra episodes of Retronauts. Henry, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. Anytime I've got thoughts, I am sure to tweet about them these days. Plus, follow the official Twitter account of the Talking Simpsons Network at Talk Simpsons Pod. Anytime there's new episodes on the free feed or on the Patreon for Talking Simpsons or What a Cartoon, that Twitter account is certainly tweeting about it. So follow it on Twitter at Talk Simpsons Pod.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for Revolutionary Girl Utena episodes 1 and 2, and we'll see you then.
That kid's got a one-way ticket to Nowheresville.
Simon suspects drugs.
Oh, my.